Chapter 381 Breakthrough and Newfound Powers. Neo made his decision fairly quickly. These two should be the best. He began his breakthrough. The air around him grew still. Wisps of white flames began to materialize over his body. He wrapped his will over will, creating a humongous amount of world energy. The chamber, built to contain and withstand breakthroughs of powerful demigods, started to shake. The energy circled within Neo before gradually slipping out like an untamed river breaking through a dam. Powerful waves of world energy pulsed outward, making the walls tremble. The energy leaking from his body swelled with passing moments. With a final pulse, a wave of raw energy blasted out in all directions, shattering the walls of the chamber. Debris fell to the ground, and a cloud of dust filled the room. The chamber was a compartment within a much larger building. The walls began to repair themselves. Neo exhaled deeply and opened his eyes. He flexed his muscles, testing his newfound strength. He could feel the immense power coursing through him. This feels completely different from my previous breakthroughs. Neo felt as if he could defeat any paragon with a flick of his finger. Was it because he possessed three sources of power, two traits and his own ascension? I feel like I can fight and exalted now, he muttered. The biggest change, however, was in his senses. Neo's vision, intent vision, was improving with each moment, as his body continued to adjust to its newfound power. He could see the tiniest details in the rubble. The same was true for his other senses. Taste, smell, hearing, all of them were evolving to a level that made him feel like his senses had been sleeping, until now. The distant sound of water flowing far within the earth reached his ears. Status. A translucent blue screen appeared before him. Neo Hargraves. Rank. Half-step ascension. The world. Closing square bracket. World core rank. NA. World energy rank. Stage 1. Stats. Strength. 5,451 right pointing arrow 9,998. Speed. 5,567 right pointing arrow 11,201. Dexterity. 5,765 right pointing arrow 10,346. Constitution. 5,970 right pointing arrow 11,019. Luck. 0 right pointing arrow 0. Affinity. Death, shadow, darkness, void, water, time, life, holy, nightmare. Magic spells. Incantations. Trait. Monarch of Death rank. Grade 5 Paragon. Potential. Death, immortal, eternal, primogenitor, crownless king. Mind Invasion rank. Grade 5 Paragon. Potential. Grade 1 Empyrean, Mind Invasion, Mind Control, Empathic Bond, Empathic Transcendence. Quest. Sacred Treasures. Skyfall, Obidus incomplete. My stats nearly doubled, and, what's this, potential, of my traits. It didn't take long for Neo to realize what potential signified. Potential is the highest rank a trait can reach. He held his chin as he pieced his thoughts together. Since I took Mind Invasion from anomaly number 33, who was born in a STAGE0 world, that means his potential, in other words, his gene limit, was Empyrean rank. He paused and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. As for why it reached Paragon rank despite having a gene limit of Empyrean rank, it must be due to link lock. It links my traits. My original trait seems to have no limit, and it must have helped Mind Invasion to break past its gene limit. He nodded slightly, feeling that his deductions were mostly correct. The only thing I don't understand is, how did Monarch of Death have a limit so high that it's shown as question marks? His thoughts were suddenly interrupted. A sharp pain tore through his head. He stumbled slightly and clutched his head. His vision blurred as the sensation threatened to overwhelm him. The pain dissipated just as quickly as it came, leaving Neo disoriented. Panting lightly, he straightened. What the? Neo's voice trailed off as he looked at his surroundings with new clarity. Thanks to his new trait, Empathic Transcendence, Neo could sense things he had never noticed before. His gaze widened in awe as tiny motes of colors floated in the air around him. They were elementals. Air elementals, a lighter shade of green, darted through the air like restless fireflies. They seemed incapable of staying in one place. Their movements were playful and chaotic, almost childlike. The floor beneath him was no different. Metallic elementals, iron, copper, mithril elementals, existed within the shattered floor. As for space elementals, Neo's brows furrowed. Why are space elementals like tea? His eyes locked onto faint silver motes suspended in the air. Unlike the air elementals, the silver motes of space elementals remained stationary. That wasn't what confused him. Sometimes, the air and space elementals appeared to overlap, occupying the same space simultaneously. Space and air elementals are fused. No, they aren't fused, but how are they existing in the same place? It was like keeping two objects in the spatial coordinates. Something like that shouldn't be possible. He stepped forward, extending his hand cautiously toward the motes. The air elementals phased through his fingers, so did the space elementals. He couldn't touch them. While Neo was scanning his surroundings, H began to notice faint noises. They were too faint to make sense of. From what he could hear, the murmurs resembled the voices of time and voices of darkness, yet there was something distinctly different about them. First, my vision upgraded. Now my hearing is, Neo realized. The breakthrough had brought extraordinary changes to his senses. His body was still adjusting to them. He ran a hand through his hair, which was damp with sweat, before snapping his fingers. He finally noticed the sweat and black gunk covering his body. Why do a breakthrough have to be like this always? He snapped his fingers and tried to use water affinity to clean himself. The world energy inside him entered his divine energy core. Inside the core, the resonance converted non-elemental world energy into water elemental infused world energy. Neo closed his eyes. He observed the process carefully. The water elementals inside the core coursed through his bloodstream, before exiting his body through the magic circuits on his palms. Cool droplets materialized in his hands. Neo observed every detail, every movements of the elementals. Then, he reached into his shadow space. The inky blackness swirled momentarily before he withdrew a simple water bottle. He tilted the bottle, letting the water spill onto the ground. The liquid pooled in the cracks of the floor. Neo crouched. He compared the water elementals created by his core to those naturally present in the water. Both water elementals are the same, but mine seem mechanical. He extended a hand over the pool of water on the ground, sensing the natural elementals within. They lazed around, moving as the water pulled them along. My elementals are only doing what I'm telling them to do. But the water elementals inside this water seem to have a mind of their own. Neo focused intently on the water before him. To properly use his new trait, he needed to know how it worked. The noises returned. This time, they were slightly louder. As Neo focused on the water, he suddenly seemed capable of hearing the water elementals. Bah! It's too bright. Why did you bring me out of my home? A lazy voice grumbled. Neo, startled, stared at the pool of water. Before he could process what had just happened, another voice, light and playful, cut in. Hee, want us to help you. The air elementals seemed to glow. Brighter as they spoke. We will help you evaporate, and in exchange, you. Their words trailed off abruptly. The air elementals seemed to freeze mid-movement. They focused on Neo. You can hear us. I can. Wow. The tiny pale green motes began to swirl around him like a whirlwind. Their movement sent gales thrashing through the chamber. Loose debris was kicked up into the air. Countless voices overlapped, each belonging to a different air elemental. They were different individuals, yet there was something that tied them together, something that made them one, even though they were many. How can you hear us? Is it related to what you were doing a few moments ago? Tell us. Tell us. Their voices blended together. They were too excited to notice Neo couldn't understand their overlapping words. Neo frowned, feeling a headache. Their voices were hard to understand. If not for Eternal granting Neo 50% resistance to every harmful effect, and himself being an ascender, he might have died the moment he heard the voices of elementals that didn't belong to his affinities. Speak one thing at a time. I can't hear you all like this. The motes paused. Then, in unison, they spoke again, their excitement barely contained. What are you doing? How can you hear us? Neo felt like he was surrounded by 100 overly energetic children who had just downed an entire case of energy drinks. I can talk to you all with the new trait I gained. As for why I'm doing this, it's to train my trait and see how it works, he explained. Oh, the voices rose again in a collective cheer. The pale green motes whirled faster in a strange excitement. Training. Do you want to do some interesting training? Interesting training. Yeah, we will teach you something nice. Think of it as a greeting gift, one of them chimed in, its voice sweet and persuasive. Neo frowned. Something smelled fishy about their offer. Still, he decided to entertain their idea, for now. Go on. The motes seemed to vibrate with delight at his response. If you can see us, you can see the old man's space too, right? To you, it must look like we and the old man's space exist in the same place. But that's not true. We exist in different places. Neo frowned. His gaze shifted between the glowing pale green motes of air elementals and the silvery, stationary forms of the space elementals. Chapter 382 Dimensional Shift. Air elementals' words reminded him of something. The difference between two-dimensional objects and three-dimensional objects. If you drew two squares on a paper, you wouldn't be able to tell which square was nearer to you and which was farther away. It was because the concept of depth didn't exist in 2D. But if you placed two cubes in front of you, you could instantly tell which one was closer and which one was farther. Even if you can't notice the extra dimensions, they still exists. How about we teach you a method to access them? What will that do? You will be able to enter them. Think of how useful it can be. Other people from your species are incapable of seeing things beyond the 4.5 dimension. If you can access higher dimensions, to others, it will look like you disappear every time you move. That sounded too good to be true. Neo kept his skepticism to himself and signaled the air elementals to proceed. For now, let's call the move dimensional shift. Try to analyze our movements. The air elementals, who had been flitting around like playful fireflies, suddenly stopped. Or at least, it seemed that way at first glance. Neo narrowed his eyes, focusing on the tiny, pale green motes that seemed frozen in midair. It took time to understand what was happening. The air elementals hadn't stopped moving. They were moving, but in a higher dimensional space. It was similar to drawing a square on paper. If that paper moved inward or outward in a direction perpendicular to the plane, inwards or outwards, the change would be invisible to a 2D perspective. Depth didn't exist there. Same was happening between Neo and air elementals. He strained his intent vision to track them. It was only barely, but Neo could see them moving. Their paths seemed nonsensical, slipping in and out of his perception as if the paths were changing each moment. You finally sensed it. Now try it. The motes resumed their flight, circling Neo like a lively, chaotic whirlwind. Their movements created tiny ripples in the air. They sang different praises each, though it was hard to make out individual words. Neo tuned out the external distractions and focused. While I can't see the higher dimensions, they exist around me. Dimensional shift allows me to move in those higher dimension pathways. For someone who had spent their entire life perceiving existence within 4.5 dimensions, attempting to step into the fifth and beyond felt like trying to grasp smoke. Neo tried to mimic the movements of the air elementals. It's not easy to do. The words of air elementals were cut short as Neo suddenly moved his hand in a way that felt strange. His hand hadn't moved at all from the perspective of a normal person observing him. But the air elementals saw it. His hand had shifted, not within the familiar 4.5 dimension space but into the higher dimensional realm. It was as if an empty space had emerged. He slid his hand into the space that no one else could perceive. You did it. We never thought you would learn to enter the gap so easily. It should be impossible, but wow, you did it. Gap. That's what everyone calls the dimensions which they can't see. For your species, anything above 4.5 dimensions exists in a gap of their perception. And now you can enter the gap. Try moving your whole body through the gap. Neo hesitated for a moment, then nodded. For some reason, mimicking the movements of air elementals came naturally to him. 1 step. 2 steps. His foot touched an invisible threshold. He felt a shift, like an almost imperceptible lurch in reality. He was inside the gap. A jarring sensation coursed through him. It felt as if he had slipped into the empty space, not walked into it. The feeling was similar to the shift one felt when teleoperating, but it lacked the clean fluidity he was used to. Instead, it felt chaotic. The world around him turned dark. It wasn't the darkness of night, but an oppressive, infinite void. His body felt weightless, as though he were phasing through countless layers of existence, each pulling him deeper into the gap. Hey, you should anchor yourself to a dimension. The voices air elementals have echoed. Their laughter bounced through the endless expanse. If you keep falling into the gap, no one knows where you will end. Neo's face froze as the realization dawned. So that's why they were teaching me so happily. These fuckers. His surroundings shifted violently. One moment, he was submerged in a vast ocean, and a colossal fish with glowing eyes was glaring at him from the deep depths. The monster's presence made Neo's heart pound. The next moment, he was in a vibrant forest made entirely of colorful glass. The trees shimmered like prisms, refracting light into a kaleidoscope of hues, and flowers made a crunching noise as they swayed in the wind. Neo's body continued to fall uncontrollably. He had no idea where he was or where he was. Going. Suddenly, he crashed into something cold and solid. The impact rattled through his body, leaving him breathless. The floor beneath him was hard and frigid. A groan escaped Neo's lips as he struggled to push himself upright. Pain flared in his chest. He glanced down, and noticed the crimson stain spreading across his shirt. The force of the fall had broken a few ribs, and the taste of copper lingered in his mouth as he spat out blood. Where am I? His eyes scanned his surroundings. The sky above was an endless expanse of black. The ground beneath him was made of cold stone. A thick white mist swirled around his knees. It wasn't natural. It seemed to be alive, watching him, hiding something deep within. And then he saw them. Statues. Countless humanoid statues stood frozen in the mist. They looked similar to anomaly number 79. He shook his head, trying to banish the thought. Why am I thinking of that monster? These statues are different. The statues were all facing a single direction. Neo raised his head and looked toward the sky. To be exact, he stared at the point from which he had entered this dimension, a strange crack visible only to him. He probed it with his senses. That thing looks like a one-way path. I guess I need to look for a different exit. It was unsettling to see the path he had fallen through. His own dimension, his world, or whatever it was to be called, was just a step away, literally. But he couldn't return as he had no way to move between the dimensions. I need to find the right path in the gap if I want to go home. The previous path he took had been a one-way ticket, dropping him into this bizarre dimension. It couldn't take him back. Hey, I know you can hear me, Neo called out, addressing the air elementals, the bastards responsible for his predicament. His voice trailed off as he felt a movement around him. A chill crawled up his spine. His instincts screamed danger. Chapter 383 Sword Intent. He looked around and found the source of movement. Fuck. The statues snapped their heads toward him. Their lifeless eyes locked onto him, and their mouths creaked open, as they let out an ear-piercing shriek. Get out! Get out! Get out! Tears of blood began to stream down their stone faces. Then, they moved. Some statues crumbled to pieces the moment they tried to run. Others surged forward with terrifying speed, faster than the paragon demigods Neo had seen in the past. Get out! Get out! They reached for him and their stone hands clawed at his clothes and limbs, trying to tear him apart. Neo fought back, but he knew it was useless. There were too many of them, and each one was unnaturally strong. Worse, he could sense those stronger than paragons rushing towards him. Fighting them is a waste of time and energy. I need to look for a way back. This place was swarming with statues. Clenching his jaw, Neo made a quick decision. He turned toward the nearest entrance to the gap. Anywhere is better than here, he thought as he stepped into the gap. The familiar sensation of slipping returned. His body lost control as he tumbled through dimensions. He tried to stabilize himself, to regain control of his movements, but nothing worked. Moments later, he crashed onto another cold, hard floor. The impact rattled his bones, worse than before. A groan escaped his lips as he pushed himself up. Neo words were caught in his throat. The dimension was eerily similar to the last one. Dark sky, stone floor, mist and statues. Countless statues. Wait, these statues are different. They had 2 legs and 2 limbs. That was where the similarity with the previous statues ended. Among the new ones, some were enormous. Their heads seemed to touch the sky. Others were small, barely reaching his knees. All of them shared one thing in common. They were facing a single direction. Neo looked around. He stayed quiet, trying to avoid alerting the statues, but the moment he took a step forward, his senses screamed danger. Their necks snapped towards him. Neo froze as their mouths opened unnaturally wide, stretching far beyond the limits of anything remotely human. A bone-chilling shriek erupted from them. Get out! Get out! Their cries echoed, overlapping with one another, growing louder with each passing second. Neo didn't wait. He swiftly entered the gap again, not wasting any time. The familiar sensation of slipping through dimensions enveloped him. It was a disorienting mix of vertigo and weightlessness. I think I can move better this time. He believed he could control his movements after 2 tries. But he had been wrong. The moment he stepped into the gap, he slipped. The sensation of falling uncontrollably through the void was unpleasant. It lasted for 3 seconds before he crashed, hard, onto a cold, hard stone floor. Goddammit, not again. Groaning, Neo pushed himself up and scanned his surroundings. The same dark sky, the same lifeless stone floor, and countless statues, all facing in the same direction. There was one difference. The statues' appearances had changed. They no longer resembled humans, missing even with 2 arms and 2 legs that every statue in the previous dimension had. Some had long, serpentine tails that coiled beneath them, while others stood on 3 legs. Some statues floated eerily above the ground. The statues look like they are losing more of their humanity each time I slip into the gap. Less than a second had passed since Neo appeared in this dimension when one of the statues suddenly lunged toward him. Before Neo could react, its stone hand grabbed his face with crushing strength and slammed him into the ground. The impact sent a shockwave of pain through his body, leaving him stunned for a split second. Damn it, Neo thought, struggling to move. Before he could get back on his feet, more statues closed in on him. Their movements were swift. Each one was as strong as the first. Neo tried to escape into the gap again. A statue suddenly blocked his path. The entrance to the gap closed on its own, vanishing before his eyes. You guys can do that. He fought back with everything he had. The statues overwhelmed him with sheer numbers. Not only were there too many of them, but each one was at least exalted rank in strength. Give me a break, fuckers. The statues fought like wild, rabid monsters. Their movements were erratic yet they were coordinating with each other. A few tried to bite into his skin. Neo had no room to breathe. His movements were restricted, and every attempt to create an opening for escape was thwarted. As he battled, he caught the faint sound of giggling. The air elementals. Their laughter echoed faintly, mocking him from somewhere he couldn't see. Neo clenched his teeth in frustration. He didn't have the time or energy to be angry at them. His focus remained on the statues as he fought with everything he had. Giant sword slashes capable of tearing continents flew through the air. Red lightning bolts crackled, surging across the battlefield like violent storms. Neo continued to kill the statues. No matter how many he destroyed, more statues emerged, seemingly infinite. I need a stronger attack, he thought. Neo took a deep breath, and forced himself to be calm. The world around him blurred into the background as he tuned out the distractions, the sound of shattering stone, the crackle of lightning, the relentless screams of the statues. His grip on the sword's hilt tightened. Wisps of white energy began to gather around the blade. Neo didn't notice it happening. His focus was on a single point, on creating an attack as lethal as possible. A sword cuts. Unlike before, Neo abandoned any flashy or complicated techniques. He stripped his approach down to its core. He fused the intent of the most basic understanding of the sword, a sword cuts, into his blade. The air trembled as the blade moved. Humongous amount of power began to surge from Obidus. A blinding white slash flew out, slicing through the darkness like a beacon of destruction. It was smaller than his previous attacks. But the power contained within was unparalleled. The slash tore through the statues in its path with ease. The force of the attack left a deep gash in the stone floor, something none of his previous attacks had managed to accomplish. Modification of question 5 feet. What is sword intent? Is completed as user has created sword intent successfully. Neo had no time to celebrate his achievement. The statues suddenly grew frenzied, as if they had been wary of the power he had unleashed. They tried to finish him before he could use sword intent again. Just as he was on the verge of being overrun, the dark sky above shifted. It moved unnaturally, as if it was alive. Leave Neo alone. Donathir. Neo stay safe please. Neo. The voices of darkness echoed in his mind, growing louder with each word. The dark sky came crashing down like a tidal wave. It crushed the statues in an instant. The impact sent a shockwave rippling across the floor, momentarily blocking more statues from approaching him. From the shadows, the darkness elementals emerged. Ereuhert. Their voices overlapped. Unlike the air elementals, who each spoke with distinct individuality, the darkness elementals repeated the same words over and over, like a broken tape recorder. Despite the unsettling way they spoke, Neo could sense a genuine concern in their voices. Call the space can help you. Come out space help Neo. No. Suddenly, another voice appeared. This one was calm and collected. Help him, the darkness elementals pleaded. Chapter 384 Deadly Pranksters. Why should I? The calm voice replied. He will help your loved one, he will help, so you help to help him. The words of the darkness elementals were overlapping, but Neo could more or less understand them. Strangely enough, he felt a close connection to darkness. Help Neo. He frowned, as he picked up on the urgency in their tone. The darkness elementals seemed desperate to get him out of the dimension. A few darkness elementals noticed the confusion etched across Neo's face. They began to circle him. The air tricked you. You are in forbidden lands, forbidden lands. Leave quickly, quickly. Orha will know to see you. Child, the calm voice of the space elementals resonated in Neo's ears, cutting through the chaotic whispers. Will you do as the darkness has said and help my loved one? Countless questions sprang to Neo's mind like an unending tide. What was loved one? Who was he that made the darkness elementals so terrified? Neo had no time to question the elementals. The statues outside began to break through the barrier of darkness. Their attacks caused cracks to spread across the barrier like a spiderweb. Okay, he said, making his decision in a split second. Very well, the space elementals replied. Neo blinked. He felt a sudden shift, like being yanked through layers of existence. He stumbled forward, and the air around him changed completely. In the next instant, Neo found himself back in the chamber where he had made his breakthrough just minutes ago. The walls had completed their repair and the water he had spilled was still on the ground. For a moment, Neo questioned if any of it had even happened. If not for the torn fabric of his clothes and the deep bruises covering his body, he might have thought it was all an illusion. Neo let out a long breath. He sank to the cold stone floor. His chest rose and fell heavily, as he recalled the past few minutes. Empathetic transcendence. Progress. 0% right pointing arrow 7%. Crownless king. Progress. 0% right pointing arrow 3%. Looks like Crownless King progressed thanks to Link Lock. While Neo was checking the changes in status, a familiar voice boomed in his mind. Where did you disappear to? Wait, why are you injured? I don't know where I was. He leaned his head back against the wall. The air elementals taught me dimensional shift, and are you fucking crazy? The voice cut him off, laced with disbelief and fury. You tried a dimensional shift movement without space affinity. Were you trying to be spirited away? Spirited away. Yes, spirited away. There are countless dimensions that overlap with our own. We don't know that since the dimensions exist in different frequencies. The Sphinx spoke as if it was explaining to a child. Normal dimensions were X, height, Y, length, and Z, depth. These three dimensions were fundamental to all worlds. The fourth and above dimensions, however, were unique to each world. The fourth dimension could be A1, time, for planet 1, and it could be A4, light, for planet 3. People can perceive and interact with worlds that has the same dimensions as them. Neo furrowed his brows as he listened. Moving between different dimensions is possible only when you have spatial perception to sense those dimensions. But getting lost after entering the gap is common for even them. Just having high space affinity mastery is not enough. The Sphinx's voice was filled with urgency and a suppressed irritation. Then why could I do that? That's what I'm trying to know. You don't have space affinity. Without it, you can't have spatial perception. Dimensional shift should be impossible for you. Maybe it was because I copied the movements of air elementals. Not having space perception and having space perception to enter the gap must be like a deaf person talking and a normal person talking. Naturally, the difficulty was insanely high for someone deaf. Or so Neo believed. And that's it. Are you joking with me? I don't think we are close enough to joke with each other. The Sphinx became silent. Neo could tell it was trying to process his words. It was his first time seeing the Sphinx lose composure like this. Seems like getting lost in dimensions and getting back is very rare, Neo realized. I shouldn't have listened to those little shits. The air elementals giggled as they floated around. They had been surprised when Neo returned from the gap. But their surprise was quickly overshadowed by excitement as the success of their prank sank in. Neo ignored their antics, knowing he couldn't do anything at the moment. He focused inwards. What I don't understand is how I could enter the gap. Just by listening to the Sphinx, I can tell it's something that needs a lot of training. Now that I think about it, wasn't it too easy for me to copy the movements of the air elementals? Neo clenched his fists. Something was amiss. He had managed to mimic the dimensional shift on the first attempt. It had been effortless for him. Neo's train of thought came to a screeching halt as the system screen in front of him flickered. There is a lot I want to say, but before that, complete your preparations and come meet me. Bring Elizabeth along with you. The Sphinx's words appeared in glowing text on the system screen. It no longer talked. What? Just do it. The screen went blank. It was Sphinx's way of saying their conversation had ended. Neo clicked his tongue. He ran a hand through his hair and straightened his clothes when he noticed something. Moments later, the space elementals began to stir in the surroundings. The space rippled, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a gentle breeze. Silver lights danced around. As the silvery portal slowly began to materialize, Neo tried to communicate with the elementals. None of them responded. My trait isn't working. His brows furrowed. I was able to hear the elementals earlier, but I can't do it now. I guess I need to train the trait to use it properly. Despite the silence of the elementals, Neo could still sense their presence lingering in the air. However, the connection that once allowed him to converse with them seemed to have vanished. It was like a switch that turned on and off on its own. The portal finally materialized completely. A figure flashed through it and stopped before Neo. Show me your hand. Charlotte grabbed his wrist with an iron likw grip without waiting for his response. She began channeling her divine energy into him. Her energy came across the invisible barrier of world energy protecting Neo's body. The feedback was immediate. A surge of power repelled her energy, causing it to ricochet harmlessly away. All demigods and awakeners used energy as a barrier. It was to enhance their physical stats and defense, but the strength of Neo's barrier was unusual. His barrier was too strong and Charlotte couldn't pierce it. Boy. Charlotte raised her gaze to meet his eyes. The presence I felt a few minutes ago. Was it really you? Have you made a breakthrough exalted rank? Her words felt absurd to herself. Neo had been around grade 1 Paragon a few days ago. It should have taken him a few years, or decades, to reach peak Paragon. Then, he would need to train extensively for more years to make a breakthrough, which had a very high chances of being a failure. Chapter 385 Exalted Rank and Second Chance. I haven't reached exalted rank. Charlotte's expression shifted rapidly. Neo's words seemed to bolster her thoughts. Her gaze flickered with countless emotions: shock, disbelief, and finally acceptance. She sighed before releasing Neo's wrist. Congratulations, Neo Hargrave. Now you are one of the strongest warriors we have, she said. Thank you, Neo replied. He didn't bother explaining further. He knew that no matter what he said, Charlotte wouldn't believe him if he told her the truth, that he was Paragon, not exalted. Charlotte turned around. Follow me. The Sphinx told me you are going to take Elizabeth somewhere with you, she said. Quote ellipsis dot question mark quote. You don't know about it? Charlotte asked, noticing his expression of surprise. The Sphinx hasn't revealed the complete details to me, Neo replied. I see. Charlotte nodded thoughtfully. From what it told me, it will send you to some place to get the cure for Elizabeth. But that place is far. By the time you return with the cure, Elizabeth would no longer be with us. That's why it wants you to take Elizabeth with you, she explained. And you're okay with it? What if I can't get the cure and instead put Elizabeth in more danger? For one, everything seemed too convenient. It was as if Sphinx had another goal for which it was sending Elizabeth with Neo. Whatever task the Sphinx has for me seems to be dangerous. It's counterproductive to take Elizabeth along given her condition. Charlotte's steps slowed, and she turned to face him. I was worried before, but after seeing you now, I trust you. Quote ellipsis dot quote. Quote ellipsis dot quote. You are an exalted, and your track record speaks for itself. Above all, Elizabeth trusts you. Neo nodding with an imperceptible gaze. He stepped through the portal, and he found himself in Elizabeth's medical room. The room was quiet, except for the faint beeping of monitors and the soft whoosh of ventilators. Elizabeth lay on the bed. Her pale face was serene as if she lost in a fleeting dream. Go on. Use your shadow space, Charlotte said. Despite her words, Neo noticed the way her arms clutched tightly around herself. Her knuckles widened, and her gaze lingered on Elizabeth. It was clear she was deeply worried about leaving Elizabeth in his care. Neo turned to Charlotte before he used his shadow space to bring Elizabeth along. What about Amelia? Charlotte stiffened. She looked to the side. I will tell her I've sent Elizabeth to a healer. So we're planning to lie to Amelia. Yes, because. Charlotte's words trailed off, and her lips were pressed into a thin line. Her expression revealed everything. Is she angry with me? Neo asked. Angry would be putting it very nicely. After you visited Elizabeth last time, Amelia ordered the guards to not let you in again, Charlotte sighed. Neo didn't know what kind of expression to make at the revelation. He made his decision after thinking carefully. I will talk with Amelia and ask for her permission. She hates you, boy. I doubt she will leave her mother in your care. It's better than lying to her. And Neo's gaze shifted toward the mermaid plushie resting beside Elizabeth's bed. He had left it there. If Amelia truly hated him, she would have thrown the plushie out without a second thought. I think she will be okay with leaving Elizabeth in my care. Fine. Charlotte left the room after making sure of Neo's decision. Neo was left alone, surrounded by the soft hum of medical equipment. He glanced back at Elizabeth. Quote ellipsis quote. He stepped out of the room and leaned against the wall, waiting. It didn't take long for Amelia to arrive. Her footsteps were hurried. She froze for a moment when she noticed him. Recovering her composure, she brushed past him without a word and entered into Elizabeth's room. Okay, maybe it won't be as easy as I thought it would be, he muttered with a bitter smile. Time dragged on as Neo waited outside. The hallways remained eerily quiet, the stillness broken only by the occasional soft whirring of distant machines. Hours passed. Finally, at 4 in the morning, the door to Elizabeth's room opened slightly. Amelia stepped out. She closed the door behind her gently, ensuring not to disturb her mother. Why aren't you leaving? She asked in a voice low but sharp. I had something to talk to you about, Neo replied. Amelia stared at him for several long seconds before gesturing toward the hallway. Let's talk somewhere else. I don't want to disturb Mom. Neo nodded and followed her silently. They made their way to the cafeteria inside the building. Amelia stopped at a table by the window, and they both sat down. The view outside revealed a faint orange hue bleeding into the dark sky as the sun began to rise. Neo's gaze flicked to Amelia as she sat stiffly across from him. Did she bring me here because she thought I was hungry? He wondered, reading her intent. He wasn't trying to peek into her thoughts. He respected her privacy, but a glance at her intent gave him a general sense of her emotions, even if he didn't want to. They ate in silence, the clinking of utensils the only sound between them. Amelia poked at her food absent-mindedly. Finally, she broke the silence. How are you? Quote ellipsis dot question mark quote. Never mind. It's nothing, Amelia said quickly, looking away. Neo could sense her inner turmoil. She was struggling between her anger at him and the lingering concern she felt. He had returned from the shadow trial only a few days ago, only to disappear again. His sudden absence had worried his friends, and Amelia. Her stone-cold expression, something she copied from Elizabeth, was her attempt at hiding the softer emotions beneath it. The realization made Neo smile faintly. Amelia's sharp eyes immediately caught it. Why are you smiling? Is there something funny? No, Neo said under her glare. Silence settled between the two. Amelia's gaze remained fixed on her plate as she continued to poke at the remnants of her food. Neo, meanwhile, ate in silence. It wasn't until he finished his meal that Amelia opened her mouth. What did you want to talk about? She asked. Are you going to listen to me finally? Do I have a choice? Amelia shot back with a glare. She crossed her arms, and leaned back slightly. Sean told me how you stupidly sat outside Professor Daniel's office for years, waiting for him to help you in awakening your time element. I bet you'd do something similar until I listened to you. I found a clue to heal Elizabeth, and... No. Amelia cut him off. I don't want your help to heal Mom. At least listen to what I have to say. What will that do? Amelia's voice rose slightly. I can't trust you anymore. You're the reason why Mom is like that. Because you decided to do something on your own and used Mom for it. Her hands clenched into fists. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to steady her breathing, clearly holding herself back from shouting at him. Neo's gaze softened. Amelia, I know I've made a mistake. It's something that cannot be forgiven. But please, give me another chance. Neo cared about both Elizabeth and Amelia. That was why he was trying to save Elizabeth and why he didn't take her away without Amelia's permission. I want to correct my mistakes. Chapter 386 Limited Time, A Crazy Task, Everwitch Violet. Correct your mistakes by doing what? What sort of genius plan do you have now? I bet it's something extremely dangerous again. Neo was about to reveal his deal with the Sphinx when screens appeared before him. No one should know you work for me. He wanted to question if the principal knew about it, why was not Amelia allowed? But he knew Sphinx wouldn't answer him. Why are you silent? Did I hit the nail on the head? Amelia scoffed. You were right. It is something dangerous. Neo, then you should know that I won't. But it's our only choice. Elizabeth's soul has been corrupted by void, and if we don't do anything, she would die a true death. And you don't want that. Amelia replied. You, the heir of death, a person with high mastery of death, is worried about someone dying. That's the same as saying a high mastery water element user is afraid of water, Amelia said. Yes, I don't want that. I don't think death's a bad thing. Not if the person had lived a happy life and died a peaceful death. But both of us know Elizabeth's life was far from happy, and her death isn't something we can call peaceful, Neo replied. I want to make her happy. It's the only way I can correct my mistakes. Amelia's expression twisted. Her fists clenched tightly, and the knuckles turned white. She had a lot to say, but she held back. Although the principal had kept the truth of Elizabeth's actual condition from Amelia, she had an inkling about it. Neo's words confirmed the horrible truth. I hate this. Amelia's nails dug into her palms, leaving small crescent-shaped marks. All she could do was depend on others to save her family. The thought filled her with helplessness and rage. Amelia, do whatever you want. Amelia stood up and left the cafeteria. Her steps were hurried yet heavy. The slight tremble in her shoulders revealed her inner emotions. Neo remained seated for a few seconds before he stood up. There was no time to waste. Elizabeth didn't have long to live. He could think about Amelia's words after he had saved Elizabeth. He placed Elizabeth carefully in his shadow space. The shadowy tendrils enveloped her, and pulled her into the safe confines of his hidden domain. Meeting with Sphinx was his next step. You took an awful lot of time. Time you, don't have, the Sphinx said as Neo entered its chamber. The chamber was vast and dark. Like always, a table sat in the center with 2 chairs. Sphinx, in the faceless body, occupied the first chair. What do you mean by that? Neo asked, although he knew what the Sphinx was talking about. Elizabeth will die in 20 days. How do I save her? It was his way of saying he had accepted the Sphinx's request. Let's talk about your task first. The Sphinx snapped its fingers. The sound echoed through the chamber, and a giant 3D hologram appeared in the air. The hologram depicted a scene of the future. The apocalypse, where blood beasts, monstrous creatures from the Blood Sea, attacked the Luminera continent. I told you these monsters come from another place, not from the Blood Sea. Do you remember that? I do. These monsters come from another world that exists on the Blood Sea, the Sphinx explained. The Blood Sea exists in multiple worlds and dimensions, is what everyone thinks. But it's the opposite. Multiple worlds and dimensions float on the Blood Sea. Our world is one of those worlds, so is the underworld, the Sphinx said. Get to the point. What's the task? I doubt you want me to go and fight those monsters. You can do that if you want, the Sphinx shrugged. After all, if you don't defeat those monsters, the Blood Sea War will happen in a few years, and the continent would be pushed to the brink of destruction. Neo frowned. The Sphinx's way of talking said plenty. The destruction of the continent didn't matter to it. Thousands of blood beasts will invade. Luminera would fall if the Blood Sea War happens as it did in the original timeline. Luminera had barely 100 exalted demigods. Among the invading blood beasts, the weakest were paragons, and they were cannon fodder. The main force consisted of exalted rank monsters. Your task is to subdue the world core, and bring its world core to me. Neo blinked, confused. He wondered if he had misheard the Sphinx. Can you repeat what you just said? You need to go to the world from where the monsters would come, subdue that world's world core, and bring it to me. Neo looked at the monsters in the hologram and then back at the Sphinx. Are you fucking crazy? If it's a world that has so many powerful entities, then it has to be STAGE2, or maybe even Stage 3 and. A Stage 3 world will have fabled rank beings, Sphinx completed his words. That's why I'm sending you. You have the highest chance of completing the task. But don't worry. You will have help, and there is no guarantee that place has fabled rank beings, Sphinx said. Yeah, of course, Neo rolled his eyes. One of the things that Shadow World taught him was if something bad could happen, then it would happen. Fabled rank beings could be on that world. Yep, they were definitely there. And they would do everything to protect their world core. Sphinx ignored Neo's jab. It knew Neo had accepted the task and had no choice but to complete it. Everwhich violet flower is what you need to save Elizabeth, Sphinx revealed. A flower. Neo's eyebrows furrowed. The idea of something so delicate holding the key to Elizabeth's life seemed almost absurd. Yes, Everwhich violet is said to be capable of making anyone immortal. Even now, a lot of exalted demigods are searching for it. The flower will purify the void corruption Elizabeth has and heal her, Sphinx said. I'm guessing the flower is on that world. No, I have it with me. The Sphinx extended its hand, and took out a flower from its spatial pocket. Its tightly closed indigo bud seemed to pulse with a faint, ethereal glow. Despite its beauty, something about it felt incomplete. You can have it. Saves you the time you would waste on searching for it. The Sphinx threw the flower. It floated through the air, landing gently in Neo's hand. He studied it. That flower hasn't bloomed. It needs an environment full of death, darkness, time, life, holy, and void elementals in high concentration to bloom. You won't find them on our continent, world, or underworld. Sphinx continued. One of my executioners has been on that world for ages. It was thanks to him that Akashic Record could predict the Blood Sea War. He has an ability that allows him to manipulate elementals. He is your only way to bloom that flower and save Elizabeth. Neo remained quiet. Inwardly, he was wondering if he could use his trait to bloom Everwitch Violet. The Sphinx must know about my trait. If it's not saying anything, then it means it's unlikely for me to reach that level in 20 days. Chapter 387 Ability to Adapt and Fateweavers. Even if Neo could reach that level, the problem associated with the lack of void elementals on Luminara remained. Only void windows and the area around the bones beneath the continent would have void elementals. But if I go there, I won't be able to go to the world Sphinx wants me to go. I don't have enough time to go to both places. I can either go down and risk everything, hoping I get enough mastery in my empathic transcendence to make Everwitch Violet bloom. Or I can go where Sphinx wants me to go and hope the guy it told me about helps the flower bloom. Neo thought about his choices carefully. The best choice is to meet this executioner guy. I will train my trait on the way there. If I reach enough mastery in my trait before I meet him, I can use the void elementals to bloom the flower myself. If not, then I can use that guy. It shouldn't be problem since it seems to know Sphinx. Neo's brows furrowed. Still, to think someone other than me had the ability to converse with elementals. There was another person Neo knew with a similar ability. Cain. Cain's ability to use incantations worked due to the fact he could talk with the elementals on a friendly basis. That was Cain's trait. Thinking about it reminded him of Cain's end. Neo's mood dampened. While he was drowned in thoughts, the Sphinx mistook his silence as confusion. It explained its words again, this time in more details. Akashic Records isn't omniscient. It has many imperfections. These imperfections disappeared over time as Akashic Record evolved. Now, there are only a few things that are in the blind spot of Akashic Records. For one, it can't predict your existence or future, Sphinx explained. So the entire information of future inside Akashic Record is wrong. Neo asked, if I change the future, doesn't that mean whatever knowledge Akashic Record has stored will be now outdated? Yes, and no. Sphinx snapped its fingers. The hologram disappeared, and a giant cube appeared in its place. One of the sides of the cube was missing, allowing them to see its inside. Countless tiny worlds floated within the cube. Akashic Record can create instances of future. Whenever something that wasn't predicted happens, the Akashic Record creates a new instance that follows after the unpredictable change. Sphinx noticed Neo's expressionless face. It thought he was unable to understand the explanation. Snapping its finger, it created a hologram of 3 bowling lanes. Suppose a person, me, is bowling in lane 1. The instance, or knowledge if you call it, stored in Akashic Record shows that in the future I will hit all bowling pins and get a strike. A miniature Sphinx appeared in the hologram. It bowled and got a strike. This is the original instance. Now, you enter the picture and kick the ball, throwing it into lane 2. This is a future that wasn't predicted. The hologram followed Sphinx's words. Neo's projection appeared inside it. After you kick the ball and it enters lane 2, the Akashic Record will create a new instance, where the ball has been thrown to lane 2 and rolling there. In other words, it's using your actions as a basis to predict and create a new instance. I see. Neo nodded. It's like Akashic Record updated the stored knowledge to fit the present, and using that new present, it will predict a more correct future. You are right. This is the ability of Akashic Record. The ability to adapt, which is why it can predict future even if people like you exist. There are more people like me. Yes, and no, the Sphinx said. You are the only one who is from Earth yet does not exist in Akashic Records. However, there are people who exist in Akashic Records, and they can act outside the realms of the predicted possibilities of the future. They are called Fateweavers. Morgan de Montaigne, your fiancée. She is one of those. Neo's brows rose slightly. So that's why Morgan was growing much faster than in the novel. The novel was written based on the normal instances stored in Akashic Records. In other words, the Morgan in there wasn't a Fateweaver, or her abilities were incomplete. Since the Akashic Record didn't include her obvious powers, the future it predicted was wrong. It's normal for her to grow much faster in reality. Neo's thoughts abruptly stopped as a thought came to him. Morgan was a war empress according to what he knew. But now, it seemed her potential was much higher. It's good news, I guess. He smiled. Do you understand everything now? The Sphinx questioned. Not everything. Neo shook his head. What's so special about Fateweavers? Are fateweavers the only people whose future can't be predicted? Fateweavers can read, and to some extent, manipulate fate. I can give you a proper explanation about this, but it will take a lot of time. Ask the other executioners who will travel with you about this. They will answer you. The Sphinx added. As for your other question, Akashic records can predict the future only of Earth and the worlds connected to the underworld. That means, you can't predict the future of anyone from outside. Like outer gods and wandering gods, Neo interjected, completing the Sphinx's words. The instances inside Akashic records were limited to Earth. They had the knowledge of only about Earth and those connected to it, since it was built that way. Thus, if any entity interfered from outside, their actions couldn't be predicted. So that's why you want me to go to another world and bring its world core. I suppose you want to assimilate it into Akashic records, and that is how Akashic records will be able to predict the future for that world too. Neo questioned. Correct. Another question. Why are you answering my questions so readily? He stared at Sphinx with a steady gaze. It wasn't like Sphinx to be helpful. Chapter 388 Extra Reward. You accepted my task. Now, you are an executioner. Information is something I am always willing to give to the executioners of Akashic records. Not all information, of course. But, enough that most of their doubts can be answered. Neo raised an eyebrow. Until now, he had gone through hell whenever he wanted an answer from Sphinx. He could get the answers for free after becoming an executioner. If this was a sales pitch, Neo was sold. I'm an executioner. First time I'm hearing about it. You are one now, the Sphinx said. To be exact, you are the 9th executioner. The 4th, 7th, and 8th will come with you to the other world, and you will find the first executioner there. I thought I was the only one who knew about all this. They don't know about the Blood Sea War, and their mission is different from yours. So what is their mission? I can't tell you that. Then how do I know their mission isn't to deal with me, after I subdue the world core? The Sphinx began to laugh loudly, faced Neo's question. Why do you think I will tell them to backstab you? Because you are a little bitch. I really like how you never hold back your words. I'm not very happy to know you like me. The Sphinx chuckled again. You don't need to worry. I'm not stupid enough to try backstabbing someone who has the potential to defeat a world and is a dotted prince of the underworld. As for your other answer, here it is. The Sphinx snapped its fingers. A ball of intent materialized above its hand and flew into Neo's head. Information about how to make Obidus a completed sacred treasure appeared in Neo's mind. Neo took a look at it and stared at the Sphinx. What? Don't tell me you think the technique I gave you is a fraud, the Sphinx said. No, it's genuine. I can tell that, Neo replied. Then why are you frowning? Give me more rewards. What? Rewards? Give me more of them. You don't really think what you gave me is enough for the task, do you? I have to go to another planet, fight its beings almost all alone, and quite a lot of them are possibly higher ranked than me. Then I have to subdue the world core. All this is without mentioning I might have to face a fabled rank being. They are just one rank higher than Exalted, but I think both of us know what kind of monsters they are. Despite the Sphinx being expressionless, Neo felt as if it was looking at him with an incredulous gaze. Aren't you a bit too shameless? Asking for a reward after I gave you a legendary flower like the Everwitch Violet. One flower against a world. Doesn't look like a fair trade to me. It's a fair trade. You get to save Elizabeth thanks to my help. I don't really need your help to save Elizabeth. I can open a portal to the underworld, take her there, and have a Grim Reaper with holy affinity deal with her corruption, Neo said. You can't do that, the Sphinx scoffed. Helping a living being would go against the rules of the underworld, and the Grim Reapers would be stripped of their powers. You are right, but you know what? Neo smirked. If I ask them to do it, they will do it happily. Besides, they will be stripped of their power. I just need to choose a Grim Reaper who is about to retire. They would lose their powers either way after they step down from the position of Grim Reaper, so they won't hesitate to help me. Then why aren't you doing it? The Sphinx questioned sarcastically. You don't need my help. I'm not doing it as it will be disrespectful to the Grim Reapers to ask them to sacrifice their powers for me. Then you can't do it. It will be disrespectful from my perspective. From their perspective, it's an honor to serve me, the second prince. The Sphinx fell silent. While Neo's words were boastful, they were, unfortunately for the Sphinx, true. Neo's main reason for accepting the task was to grow stronger and remove his bloodlines. Curse. Another reason was he didn't want to make Grim Reapers suffer to help Elizabeth. Trading one life for another wasn't his goal. Of course, he didn't reveal that to Sphinx. He let Sphinx believe he would use GRM Reapers to save Elizabeth, even though he wouldn't do that. Fine, the Sphinx said, clearly unhappy. What reward do you need? Future. Neo replied without hesitation. The Sphinx thought about his words. In the end, it had no other choice. Fine. Whose future do you want to know? Mom and Dad's current reincarnation's future. I want to know. Neo stopped speaking when he noticed the Sphinx's confused look. Current reincarnation? The Sphinx asked, its tone laced with surprise. The Sphinx doesn't know about reincarnations. Neo frowned. Only 3 people knew about the curse. Neo, Henry, and Bale. All of them had ways to hide information from Akashic records. Neo was not recorded in the Akashic records. The Sphinx couldn't see him talking about the bloodline curse inside the instance within the Akashic records. All Sphinx could see about Neo was his status screen. Henry had a connection to an outside entity. His actions could be predicted by the Akashic records, but the predictions would be mostly wrong. It made sense that in the Akashic records predicted future, Henry didn't know about the bloodline curse. But what about Bale? How is he hiding this information from the Akashic records? In hindsight, it made sense. Bale was one of the strongest, possibly the strongest person on Earth, and he was the guardian of Earth's core. Someone as strong and long-lived as him must have prepared countermeasures against the Akashic records. So the 2 people Henry brought to the house are your parents' reincarnation, the Sphinx said, having pieced together some clues. Chapter 389 Blessings. Just when Neo thought the Sphinx would question him about the reincarnation, its words surprised him. I don't know why Hades has reincarnated, but I can't predict his future. He is too strong. Quote. The Akashic record is like a supercomputer capable of predicting the future. Where do you think the energy to run this computer is coming from? The Sphinx questioned. Neo remained silent, and the Sphinx continued. It's a power source named causality. Predicting the future consumes causality. Creating new instances consumes causality. Everything the Akashic records does consumes causality. The Sphinx explained. The stronger a person is, the higher the causality needed to predict their future, the Sphinx said. Isn't the knowledge of their future already in the Akashic records? Neo asked. It's outdated knowledge, the Sphinx replied. People like you have created massive butterfly effects and changed the entire future. Now, to predict the future of powerful people again, it consumes too much causality. The Akashic records doesn't do it unless it's an emergency. Before Neo could say anything, the Sphinx added. Hades' future can't be predicted even if the Akashic records consumes all of the stored causality. Trust me, I've tried, and it almost caused the Akashic records to shut down. Neo clicked his tongue. He had been hoping to use this chance to see how the curse would try to kill George and Mira and use that information to his advantage. You know, Neo suddenly said, an irritated expression spreading across his face. Have you seen that meme about the super strong enemy boss joining your team and turning out to be useless? I haven't. Why are you asking me about it? Look in the mirror. The joke will give you a good laugh. The Sphinx felt insulted. The Akashic record administrator looked through the records to find out the information about the meme and use it to counterattack. Unfortunately, there was nothing about it. If you can't show me the future of Dad, show me the future where Arthur and others go for the bone excavation, Neo said, his tone shifting back to seriousness. Oh, you want to use your reward for that? Yes, Neo replied. He did not feel ashamed of extorting the rewards out of the Sphinx before he started the task. You lucked out on this one, the Sphinx said. It snapped its fingers, and a new hologram appeared. The hologram showed Mars, with long flaming red hair, attacking Jack, who was using corrupted undeads. Sean, Clara, Nathan, Luna Barton, and Morgan's corpse lay on the ground. Arthur was in a half-dead state. Alive, but not for long. You don't seem surprised by it, the Sphinx said as it studied Neo's reaction. I'm very surprised, Neo replied. He was not lying. Not fully, at least. It's more or less as I expected it to go. How much do you know? The Sphinx questioned Neo seriously. Know what? About the thing inside Mars. Inside him. Neo blinked in surprise as he acted. Does he walk about with things inside him? He has a wandering god sealed inside his body. The wandering god's power has caused Mars' body to be strained to the limit. It left him unable to grow stronger. Removing the seal will allow the wandering god to escape. Mars' body can be healed after that, but there is a high chance the wandering god will take over Mars' body, the Sphinx explained. It stared at the screen. Which is what happened there. Of course, that happened. You planned for it, Neo said, his tone calm but accusatory. You told Jack that removing the seal would save Mars, but you never told him about the dangers that came with it. You know about the seal, the Sphinx pointed out. Jack told me about it inside the shadow world, Neo replied with a shrug. Then how do you know about the dangers of breaking the seal without the proper method? I guessed after seeing the hologram. Neo could tell his response irritated the Sphinx. He ignored its frustration and opened his mouth. I've got my answers. I'm ready to leave. Tisk. The Sphinx made sure Neo heard the click of its tongue before it added, go to the Breach City harbor at the southernmost tip of the continent. The other executioners are waiting for you there. Okay. Before Neo could turn around to leave, the Sphinx took out a black mask from its spatial pocket and gave it to Neo. You'll need it soon. Neo nodded and took the mask. As soon as he touched it, two streams of immensely powerful intent burst out from it. They flowed into Neo. He could have stopped them, but he did not do so after sensing what was within the two intents. The intents flowed into his seed of existence and became a part of it. Neo felt a change in his body. His senses were strengthened, and his physical appearance got a huge boost, turning him much more handsome. Some of his scars disappeared. Seems like you recognize what those are, the Sphinx said. Blessings, Neo said. Quite useful ones at that. They are mine and Artemis' blessings. We give them to all executioners, the Sphinx said. It didn't want to give the blessings to Neo after he extorted rewards from it. However, the blessings were too useful, and the Sphinx needed Neo to complete his task at all costs, which was why it was helping him and rewarding him generously. Can you guys give your blessings so easily to others? We can. Of course, the number is limited, and since, unlike gods who give their blessings to only direct descendants, which are few in number, we give ours to multiple people, which forces us to limit the number of users unless we want the blessings effect to be weakened. User has gained multiple blessings. Hidden condition achieved. Blessing section will be added to the user's status screen. Neo stared at the screens that appeared before his eyes. Blessing. Hadeen Light. Wiseman's Insight. Lunar Grace. Chapter 390 Blessings 2. Hadeen Light. Boosts elemental control, elemental power, and physical stats by 300%, level 1. Judgment, level max, sealed. Springbloom, level 1. Hell Descent, level 1. Wiseman's Insight. Detailed Inspect. Foresight. Lunar Grace. Appearance, stamina, and fertility boost by 500%. Boosts dark type affinities elemental control by 100%. Infinite mana. Wayfarer. Neo stared at the screen in front of him. Blessing of Underworld. Hadeen Light. Was more or less what he expected. However, the levels surprised him. It seemed his blessing could grow stronger. His brows furrowed as he read further. Wiseman's Insight must be the name of Sphinx's blessing, he thought. It has easy to understand and useful abilities. His gaze landed on the next blessing and his lips twitched in disbelief. But what the fuck is wrong with Lunar Grace? Fertility, really? Neo shifted his gaze toward the Sphinx. The administrator of Akashic Record raised its hands in a gesture of surrender. Don't look at me like that, the Sphinx said. It's not my fault the perverted moon is always thinking about those things. Why add it to the blessing? It's not helpful to my combat strength. Neo scowled. The screen flickered, and a new line of text appeared. It will help you build your own little army. What? Neo froze. It's not me, the Sphinx said quickly, waving its hand. The intent of Artemis within you said whatever it did. Neo groaned. It just said. I don't want to know, the Sphinx interrupted. This unusual reaction made Neo pause. Seeing the Sphinx, who normally brimmed with curiosity, retreat like this reminded him just how insane Artemis could be. Only one thing ever seemed to be in her mind. This is gonna be a fucking headache, Neo muttered, pinching the bridge of his nose. Fucking. Who are we fucking? The message on the screen made Neo's eye twitch. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to focus on calm himself. The blessing is useful. Don't erase the intent. Don't do it, he repeated to himself like a mantra. Clicking his tongue in irritation, he diverted his attention to another. What's with this infinite mana blessing? Is it really infinite? Kind of. The moon is a stage 2 planet, so its energy reserves are huge, comparable to Earth's. Only executioners have direct access to it. It's essentially infinite, since it's used by only 9 people. Neo nodded. The idea of having infinite mana was fascinating. While mana was a lower quality energy compared to divine energy, and far lower in quality than pure world energy, its sheer abundance more than made up for the difference. I always wanted to try spamming spells, he He could already picture himself unleashing a rain of mimic meteors. After checking his blessing, Neo turned around to leave. He was about to step out of the hall when he suddenly stopped. Tell the principal to take Morgan as her disciple, he told the Sphinx. The Sphinx raised an eyebrow. That isn't supposed to happen until the start of second-year classes. Morgan needs the God-Slayer weapon Charlotte bought from the auction. It will raise her chances of survival when they go for bone excavation. The only way she gets that weapon is by becoming Charlotte's disciple, Neo explained. Not even trying to hide the future anymore, are you? The Sphinx let out a soft scoff. It waved its hands lazily, as if in no mood to listen to Neo's excuses. Consider it done. Got it. He stepped through the silvery portal without another word. The world shifted around him, and in an instant, Neo found himself back in his dorm room within the academy. Just as he appeared, a screen materialized before him. Quest. Save Elizabeth de Beaufort. Reward. Awakening of Nightmare Element, Void Field Spell, Crownless King Express plus 50%, Empathic Transcendence Express plus 50%. Failure. Ire of Amelia de Beaufort. Time limit. 20 days. Accept, reject. Accept. Neo spoke in his mind, and the screen vanished. He turned toward the door and prepared to move, attempting to use Shadow Step to enter Felix's room. However, as soon as he tried, an invisible barrier surrounding Felix's dorm room stopped him in his tracks. Why does the academy have such good security? If it was a villain infiltrating, I bet this shit barrier wouldn't work. Clicking his tongue, he spoke a little louder. Principal, please open Felix's dorm room. I need to give something to him. There was no response. Neo frowned. The principal must have heard him with her exalted rank senses. She was probably ignoring him deliberately. He crossed his arms, tapping his foot. I wonder if I can fix the door after smashing it, he thought, weighing his options. Just as he was about to act, the door opened with a quiet shoosh. Thank you, Neo muttered before stepping inside. Felix's room was neat and smelled faintly of lavender, likely from an air freshener set near the entrance. Neo made his way to the bedroom and noticed a thin layer of dust on the furniture. How long has it been since he came to his room? He murmured. He moved to the training room next. It was completely different. The smell of gunpowder lingered in the air, mixing with the metallic tang of spent ammunition. Training dummies riddled with bullet wounds stood scattered across the room, and some of them appeared to have been damaged recently. This place is good enough. It's clear Felix comes here regularly, Neo remarked. Neo took out a small vial, his shadow space. He made a small cut on his palm, and let his blood drip into the vial. Once the vial was filled, he pulled out a piece of paper and quickly scribbled a note. Greater than God-slaying blood. Use it preciously. From Neo less than. Neo placed the vial and note in a spot where Felix wouldn't miss it, ensuring it was noticeable. This should be good enough for their excavation mission, Neo muttered. He gave the room one last glance, and left. The air in the hallway was cool. Neo focused inwards. Where are you? He called out to Beelzebub. The response came from a nearby place. Neo opened his eyes and began to move towards the cafeteria. The cafeteria was a sprawling, brightly lit space with long tables and chairs arranged in neat rows. The scent of various dishes, roasted meats, fresh bread, and rich stews, filled the air. A group of seats was covered in a gloomy aura. It belonged to Arthur and his friends. They ate slowly, too exhausted to move. Maybe the training is too much. Neo chuckled softly. I guess it shouldn't take them long to defeat my intent clone at this rate. He scanned their table and spotted Beelzebub swimming in a large bowl of soup. The caterpillar flailed helplessly, struggling to escape the thick broth it had been eating until now, and come out to meet Neo. Neo raised an eyebrow. The bastard had grown significantly during the time they were apart. You've become a fat ass, Neo told Beelzebub. A snort came as response from his mental link. Jack, seated at the table closest to Beelzebub, noticed his frantic movements. His eyes widened slightly as he realized what was happening. He stood up and picked Beelzebub out of the bowl, ignoring the odd looks from others. Where are you going? Felix asked, his voice tired and his eyes half-lit as he glanced up from his plate. Chapter 391 Hard Decisions. Out for a walk, Jack replied in a casual tone. Although the excuse was blatantly weak, no one called him out on it. Jack's recent struggles had left them all feeling sympathetic. Jack had somehow lost his powers after returning from the Shadow trial. It was a devastating blow for him. Felix and Arthur sometimes noticed him crying when he thought no one was watching. To support him, They tried to stay close, but sometimes, they gave him space, like now, respecting his space. Where have you been for the past weeks? Jack asked, his tone laced with quiet frustration. And why didn't you come inside? Everyone would be happy to meet you. Jack stared at Neo, holding Beelzebub carefully in his hands as the caterpillar grumbled and wriggled, soup dripping from its round body. Neo had grown visibly. He seemed a head taller, and his skin gave out a healthy glow. It's fine. I'm short on time, and they're tired. It's better to let them rest. While they spoke, Neo used his intent to scan Jack's body. He found no trace of void elements awakening. Jack was using void element with his necromancy in the future Sphinx showed me, Neo thought. How is that possible? Jack is corrupted by void, but that void is mimicked shadow element, even if it came from a 100% synchro world. Neo frowned. Sure, mimicked void can corrupt his core and cause him to lose powers, but it shouldn't be able to awaken the actual void element. He doesn't have void affinity. Shadow elements can't give it to him. Jack's status screen had void affinity, since the Akashic record saw him using it in the future. The Akashic record didn't have much information about 100% synchro shadow worlds. It couldn't predict everything related to those worlds, especially since they weren't connected to Earth. The records must have assumed that the void affinity Jack gained from there was real. But that doesn't explain how Jack used void affinity inside that vision. And how can the Akashic record make such a simple mistake? Even if the Akashic record thought Jack had received void affinity, it should have predicted others' futures and realized Jack had no void affinity in them. Jack's future and others' future would have been like trying to piece together wrong pieces of puzzle. The vision of predicted future shouldn't form since the pieces didn't fit. But there was a vision. Neo saw it. It meant Jack having void affinity was a consistent detail in everyone's future, causing Akashic record to believe this was the correct future. Something like this can only happen when Jack got his void affinity from another source and the Akashic record didn't realize it. Neo's eyes narrowed. It already believed Jack got void affinity from the shadow world, and it predicted a future like that. Putting two and two together, it had no reason to not believe Jack got his void affinity from somewhere else. Neo's thoughts churned. Who gave Jack void affinity? Neo was lost in thought when Jack's voice broke through the silence. What's wrong? You look like you were thinking about something serious. Neo blinked, turning to face Jack, who stood a few steps away. Did something strange happen to you in the past few days? Did someone shady come to meet you? Neo asked. No. Jack answered, confused. His expression made it clear he had no idea what Neo was referring to. Forget about it, Neo said, shaking his head slightly. I'm here to tell you about the excavation mission. What about it? Jack asked, straightening slightly. You guys will fail, and everyone except Arthur and you will die. Jack's expression stiffened, but there was no surprise or fear in his eyes. I see. Jack's words trailed off. You guys failed because you opened the seal on Mars wrongly, Neo explained. Quote. Are you sure? Jack asked. I am sure about it. As for the correct method of unsealing, no one knows it honestly. Then, you guys need to awaken your void affinity and use it along with death, as chaos, to slowly corrupt the seal and break it successfully. It should work that way, in theory at least. If you think you can't do that, then don't try to remove the seal, Neo said. Okay, but who is, you guys? Arthur and you. Arthur has void affinity. Jax questioned, surprised. He does, Neo confirmed, and he thought. He was bred to be the perfect warrior. Of course, he has void. Neo gave Jack a few more warnings. Be careful, Neo said finally with a small encouraging smile. He was about to leave when Jack suddenly called out to him. Neo, you should come with us. Neo stopped and turned around. Quote. Question mark quote. If we fail and Mars goes on a rampage, then we need someone to subdue him. Yeah, that's why I'm explaining everything to you. I trust you enough to know you can handle it. It's impossible for me. Jack's voice wavered, and he clenched his fists. Shadow Window and Shadow World. In both places, he had done nothing to help. Worse, he had caused more damage. What if I make a mistake again? I'm not strong enough to handle. Then be strong, Neo interrupted Jack. If you can't do that, don't remove the seal. Or ask my brother for help. He'll get you someone strong enough to hold off Mars' rampage. Neo activated his shadow jump spell before Jack could respond. His figure melted into the shadows in an instant, and he disappeared without another word. Jack stood there, alone. I hope I did the right thing by pushing him like that, Neo thought. As much as he wanted to help, Neo understood that this was something Jack had to overcome on his own. He had to stand back on his 2 feet. He really doesn't know how to talk, Jack chuckled. He understood Neo's intentions were good. Now I need to find a way to break the news to everyone. He took one last look where Neo had disappeared into and returned to the cafeteria. You are back already? Arthur questioned. Chapter 392 Essence and Moon's Demand. Were you with Neo? Felix suddenly asked with narrowed eyes. Jack was surprised by the accuracy of her guess. I was. How did you know, though? Venith told me, Felix replied. The snake spirit, visible only to her, coiled lazily around her shoulders. Why did he leave without meeting us? He said he was busy. His words dampened the group's mood. The warmth of the food now seemed less comforting. It was clear Neo was involved in something dangerous again. He hadn't met them because he didn't want them to worry. If it had been before, Felix and the others would have been angry. They would have demanded to know why Neo hadn't told them what he was doing and insisted they could help. But that wasn't possible anymore. They were too weak to stand alongside Neo. If they tried to help him, they would only become a burden. The realization stung. It left a bitter taste in their hearts. Jack noticed the heavy atmosphere and decided to change it, forcing a grin onto his face. I don't think it's something dangerous, he said. Remember Professor Anna, she's also on leave. Felix's eyes flicked back to him. What are you trying to say? Morgan told us Neo met with her. He bought her a plushie, Jack said with mischievous expression. Hee hee, I bet something is going on between those two. They must have gone somewhere together. Somewhere they can. Jack trailed off. His knowing smile stretched wider. His implication caused the others to exchange awkward, confused glances. A faint flush of embarrassment crept onto the faces of Sean and Nathan. Arthur cleared his throat, breaking the silence. I don't think Professor Anna would be involved with a student. She doesn't seem like someone who would do that. No, I think Jack is right. Those two always had this weird air around each other. Also, you might not have noticed, but Professor Anna was always biased in Neo's favor, Felix said and then thought. Even during the S-rank mission slot competitions, Professor Anna went against the principal and took Neo's side. The group began to whisper among themselves excitedly. The tension from earlier melted away, replaced by the light-hearted distraction of gossip. Jack, pleased with himself, eagerly added more fuel to the fire. His gestures exaggerated as he recounted other clues to support his theory. He knew Neo was going to absolutely thrash him later. He decided to leave the future problems for the future him and have fun now. They suddenly stopped talking when Morgan put the spoon down with force. It made a loud noise. I'm full. I'll go train now. Morgan left without another word. The group was left in a stunned silence. No way. No way. Felix muttered with a shocked face. Her wide eyes darted towards the door. Don't tell me she is jealous. That's just your imagination. This is Morgan we are talking about. Even the reason she became Neo's fiancé was for food, Clara said. She looked at Morgan's disappearing back and continued. I think she is worried her free food fiancé ticket will disappear if the news about Professor Anna and Neo is true. There is no way she is jealous. Why not? Maybe she had a crush on him. No sane person will have a crush on that madman, Clara rolled her eyes. Their first meaningful interaction was Neo grabbing Morgan and jumping down from a cliff. Why yeah, Felix smiled, recalling that day. Ellipsis. Neo felt a chill crawl up his spine. Why do I feel like someone is talking bad about me? He glanced around before he shook his head, dismissing the thought. He focused on the task in front of him. The small shop in front of him had a flickering neon sign above the door. He entered and bought a super extra large singing set along with tens of thousands of songs downloaded on the device. The shopkeeper gave him a strange look but said nothing, quickly completing the transaction. The angel inside his shadow space, Velkaria, complained almost immediately when he gave them to her. The material of the music set is not made from void-resistant material. It will break soon. It's time you learned how to control your void affinity. You are always blasting it in all directions like there is no tomorrow, Neo said. If you can't do it and the music set breaks, I won't buy more for you. Fuck you, bastard. I asked for something that would entertain me. Not a training device, Velkaria shouted at irritably. I'll take it back if you don't want it. Fuck off. Neo left the shadow space after settling the matter with Velkaria. He chuckled as he thought how the angel would be caring about a device that was not even 1/10 of its size. He started to move towards the southernmost point of the continent. The shadow jump spell allowed him to travel at high speed, but it wasn't enough. An hour later, he stopped. This isn't going to work. At my current speed, it will take me a few days to reach the destination. Neo didn't have time to waste. He needed to be fast if he wanted to save Elizabeth. He took out his Grim Reaper badge, and spoke into it. Cerberus, can you tell Veldora I called for him? The badge shook as if nodding, its faint vibrations echoing through his palm. Without hesitation, he moved towards the towering mountain range in the next city. It would be a disaster if Veldora arrived inside a city. The badge began to glow as soon as Neo reached a clearing near the mountain's base. A pale black light shot out from it, piercing the sky. The light seemed to shatter as it hit the heavens, scattering like broken glass before reforming into a swirling black portal. Shadows danced around the edges of the portal as an oppressive presence filled the air. With a mighty roar that shook the earth, Veldora descended from the portal. His immense form blotted out the sun. I need your help to go somewhere, Neo said as Veldora landed with a thunderous impact. The ground trembled beneath his weight. The dragon lowered his head, bowing before him. It will be my pleasure, Prince. Moments later, Veldora took to the skies with Neo on his back. There rushed no winds just like last time, and the world below turned into a blur of greens and browns. The ancient dragon's speed was astonishing. We need only an hour at this speed, Neo thought. I might be a paragon, but my combat strength should be around early exalted. He glanced at the massive form beneath him. Veldora is also exalted rank. Both of us are around the same rank, but the difference between our strength is like day and night. He only needs an hour to cover the distance that would take me days. Neo closed his eyes, steadied his breathing and mediated on Veldora's back. The rhythmic beating of the dragon's wings was soothing. He began to read the information Sphinx had given him. It told him how to transform Obidus into a complete sacred treasure. Condense your world energy into essence, the instructions read. Fuse that essence with your sacred treasure until it is completed. Neo reread the information. Isn't this too simple? As if responding to his skepticism, a moon's intent spoke directly into his mind. Its words transformed into letters that appeared before him. It's not simple at all. Worlds take thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, to complete the sacred treasure. Your case is a bit different, of course. But that doesn't mean it's going to be simple. Neo waited, expecting more information. But it never came. Why did you stop talking? Stop talking. I thought it was the end of the convo lol. Neo's brow twitched. Just tell me why my case is weird. You really wanna know? Yeah, Neo said, suppressing the feeling that Moon was getting more relaxed with him and going to say something absolutely moronic. Pay me with 1 hour of bed action scenes if you want the information. Quote ellipsis dot. What? Sex, it said, as if Neo had not understood its connotation. Let me watch some good old fucking. Quote ellipsis quote. Neo closed his eyes. He focused inwards, shutting out the absurdity of Moon's demand. His will surged like a torrent. It condensed into world energy, and he tried to condense even more. Is it me or did you just ignore me? Neo ignored the text. Bah, stop acting like a saint. There is no swordsman who doesn't like to swing his sword. The corner of Neo's lips twitched. Swinging his sword was the last thing on his mind. He had a lot of things to accomplish, and he was short on time. Moon's intent harumphed. It stopped talking when it realized Neo wouldn't reply. If Neo was going to be stubborn, then Moon's intent could do the same. It refused to give any information until Neo plowed a holy land. Of course, it would still fulfill its role as a blessing. The information it could give, however, was not part of the blessing, which was why Moon's intent demanded a price for it. Dozens of minutes passed as Neo concentrated. Beads of sweat rolled down his nape, dampening his shirt. World energy began to manifest around him. It looked like white flames, flickering and wavering in the still air. But a closer look revealed something else. The flames were not flames at all but were instead formed from thousands of thin threads of energy gathered together. Neo grunted as he pushed himself further. His muscles tensed, and his focus sharpened. Each thread of energy bent to his will as he tried to condense the white flames into essence. Chapter 393 Essence Collection Plan. The world energy refused to condense. It was like trying to compress a stone with hands. With nowhere to go, it started to tremble, but Neo forced it to condense. The white threads trembled and flailed around. The energy within him started to rampage. His breath hitched, and his hands shook. The white flames began to burn the air around him. He withstood the pain, and, after what felt like hours, condensed all of the world energy into a single strand of essence. His chest heaved. A glowing white thread floated before Neo. He had to expend all of his mental energy to create it. I don't think I can create more world energy for now. He had trouble speaking. His chest rose and fell irregularly. He had to wait until his mental strain disappeared before he could try to create more world energy. It would take hours, given the exhaustion he was feeling. Next, he tried to combine the single essence with Obidus. The world seemed to shift around the glowing thread. It contained enough energy to power the STAGE-0 Earth for a decade. The fusion was much easier, perhaps because Obidus helped him in it by sharing the mental burden. Obidus. Type. Sacred treasure, incomplete. Ability. Harmonization. Essence. 1/1000th. A screen appeared in front of Neo. He had never seen it before. This must be one of the benefits of the status screen update. His eyes fell on the essence numbers and he frowned. I need to recover for 7 to 8 hours after creating a single essence. That means I can create only 3 essence a day. It would take me 334 days to turn Obidus into a complete sacred treasure. Neo's expression was far from good. The worst part is that creating essence is so hard that I can't do anything else with it. And after creating essence I'm too exhausted to move, let alone fight. Neo needed 334 days if he did absolutely nothing but create essence. He needed a better way. I can try to use true darkness to devour the monster's seed of existence. It should strengthen my own seed of existence, which will indirectly strengthen my mind, meaning I can create world energy faster and recover at a quicker speed. Since seed of existence was a bundle of one's existence, the stats it would give should, no matter what, strengthen Neo's mind. Luck didn't matter. The only problem was he would need to devour a large number of strong monsters. We are about to reach the destination, Prince, Veldora said. His voice snapped Neo out of his thoughts. Neo stared into the distance. Several cities and sprawling fields lay between them and their destination. Neo's senses easily pierced through the miles, focusing on the faint energy signature ahead. A crimson sunset painted the sky, casting long shadows over the jagged cliffs below. Should I use it? Neo murmured to himself, pulling out the plain black mask Sphinx had given him. Why are you holding a mask, Prince? Veldora questioned. Neo explained his situation to Veldora. There was a high chance the other executioners would be senators. They might hold grudges against Elizabeth, as most exalted demigods of Luminara did. If they discover I'm an executioner, they'll know I've either reached exalted rank or I'm close to it. And they'll also realize I'm trying to help Elizabeth, who's already teetering on the edge of death. That makes me their enemy, and they'll likely try to eliminate me before I succeed, Neo explained. If they are your fellow executioners, doesn't that make them your allies, Prince? I doubt they would go against Sphinx's wishes and fight amongst themselves, Veldora said. Executioners, even I, work with Sphinx for our own benefits. We're not its servants, Neo replied. If they think Elizabeth's death serves them better than the reward for completing this mission, they won't hesitate to act against me. Neo hesitated. His fingers tightened on the mask. Part of him wondered if he was being overly cautious. But the fact remained, Sphinx had given him the mask for a reason. There is a chance we will have to fight, Neo said and thought. I doubt they will attack me as soon as we meet. If I was in their place, I would wait until the opponent had lowered his guard. You don't need to use the mask, Prince, Veldora said with quiet pride. You've done nothing that warrants hiding your face. If anyone so much as wishes to harm you, please say the word, and I shall make their end worse than death. Neo smiled faintly. He shook his head and patted Veldora's broad, scaled back. I can handle this myself. As for the mask, I wasn't planning to use it anyway. Let's land now. The others are waiting for us. As you wish, Prince, Veldora replied, his mighty wings folding as he descended with a powerful dive. The ground trembled beneath the force of the ancient dragon's landing. Shockwaves rippled outward, shaking the nearby forest and causing the sandy beach to shift like waves underfoot. Veldora raised his massive head and unleashed a deafening roar that echoed through the skies. Whoa, an ancient dragon. Looks like the new guy is some big shot, Percival whistled, standing a few hundred meters away. He had platinum blonde hair that shone under the fading sunlight, and a hammer, one of the 4 true soul weapons, was strapped across his broad back. A mortal dares to address the second prince so casually. Veldora snarled, lowering his head to glare at Percival. The sheer pressure of Veldora's aura slammed into Percival like a mountain. The ground beneath Percival cracked. Before Veldora could use more force, a soothing voice rang out. We apologize, esteemed ancient dragon. Please forgive us, Olivia spoke with grace. She stepped forward. Her sea blue hair cascaded over her shoulders like flowing water. Her curvaceous figure and the mature aura surrounding her exuded confidence. What stood out most, however, was her resemblance to Leonora, which made her look like her elder sister. Standing to her side was Nicholas, another executioner and a senator. Nicholas, the master of Templar Senora Everly, the woman Neo had encountered upon returning from the Shadow trial. He appeared to be in his 40s, with stark white hair and a thick beard. His piercing gaze and stoic demeanor made him look unapproachable. Veldora, I will take care of the matters from here on, Neo said, leaping from Veldora's back. Understood, Prince. With a flicker, Veldora dismissed his massive physical form, transforming into a swirling blue flame that hovered above Neo's shoulders like a guardian spirit. Oh, it's the suicide-loving ruler, Percival remarked with a sly grin. His tone was teasing as he added, I thought you were only a paragon when you left the Shadow trial. How did you become an executioner? Things happened, Neo replied. I'm more surprised to find out our student council president is one of the executioners and an exalted demigod. It's nothing much for me, haha, Percival chuckled. Neo scanned Percival with intent out of habit. He did the same with others. Percival was a blessing holder of the Apollo clan and a seraph, a reincarnator. This was information Neo had already known. However, something unexpected sent a jolt of shock through him. Chapter 394 Shared Growth. He is covered in Apollo's intent. Is he Apollo's reincarnation? The sheer density of the intent surrounding Percival was overwhelming. At first, Neo wondered it might be from the blessing, but the intent was too thick, too deeply ingrained. Neo scanned Percival multiple times. That intent isn't coming from the blessing. It belongs to Percival himself. Why would a god reincarnate? When Neo remained silent, Olivia spoke. We should get moving. The faster we reach our destination, the better it would be. Okay, Percival replied with a cheerful smirk. Olivia led the group toward the harbor, where a massive ship was docked. The salty sea breeze filled the air, mingling with the distant cries of seagulls. Waves gently lapped against the wooden pier, rocking the vessel ever so slightly. The ship bore a striking resemblance to the nether ships of the underworld, clearly modeled after their design. However, it was far from pristine. Its hull was battered, with patches of rust creeping along its edges and mismatched repairs dotting its surface. That ship does not work anymore, Prince, Veldora whispered to Neo. As if Olivia had overheard him, she turned her head slightly and clarified. We can't get to our location by normal means. It needs a dilapidated ship like this. Neo nodded. The four of them boarded the ship. The planks groaned under their weight, as if protesting their intrusion. Olivia snapped her fingers, and a faint blue glow enveloped her hands. Her spell flowed outward, enveloping the ship. As if responding to her command, the ship undocked itself. Its ropes unraveled and fell into the water. The sails unfurled with a burst of wind, and the vessel began to glide across the water. We will have a strategic meeting in an hour. Until then, you are free to do whatever you want, Olivia said. She conjured small, jelly-like water slimes that bounced along the deck. They acted as guides, escorting the group members to their assigned rooms. Everyone was visibly tired. They had rushed to the meeting point after receiving the sudden summons from Sphinx, leaving no time for rest until now. Neo entered his room and was immediately struck by its unexpected luxury. The ship appeared ready to collapse from the outside, but the room was spacious and well furnished. A plush bed with silk sheets occupied one corner, while a small table with intricate carvings stood by the window, offering a view of the ocean. The faint scent of lavender lingered in the air. Neo sat on the edge of the bed. Should I use Crownless King on Veldora? Neo focused on the blue flame floating nearby as a guard. He shook his head inwardly. The skill's description was quite vague. How will loyalty work? Would it give me backlash if someone who was my subordinate betrayed me? Or will it force my subjects to become loyal? Using the skill on Veldora was dangerous. What if it turned the ancient dragon into a mindless puppet? I better use it on a training dummy first. If the result shows the skill is safe, I can use it on Veldora. Neo had the perfect training dummy for such a dangerous experiment. He entered his shadow space. As soon as he arrived, his ears were assaulted by a cacophony of dreadful music. The dissonant notes reverberated through the air. If Neo hadn't known better, he might have thought the sound was an attack. You are here, Velkaria said. Perhaps it was just Neo's imagination, but he could sense a faint trace of sadness in her voice. The lingering sadness quickly disappeared and Velkaria spoke in her usual haughty demeanor. Knock before you come, will you? Have some manners. Don't worry, Neo retorted, rolling his eyes. I wouldn't peek on you even if I were paid for it. Velkaria muttered a string of curses under her breath before she questioned him. Why are you here? I needed to test my skill. Here. On you. Why do I feel like there is something dangerous about that skill? It's safe, I think. Hopefully. The fuck do you mean, you think hopefully? I'm not letting you do anything to me. The maggots squirmed away and the thousand-eyed pillars seemed to shift backward. I never said you had a choice. In the blink of an eye, Neo vanished from his spot and reappeared atop one of the thousand-eyed pillars. The surface of the pillar was squishy and pulsated beneath his feet. Before Velkaria could react, Neo placed his hand on the pillar's fleshy surface and activated the Crownless King skill. A surge of energy flowed out from Neo's body, coiling like tendrils as it entered Velkaria. The angel instinctively smacked away the invading energy. The target has refused the bonding. Crownless King has failed to activate. Why did you do that? Why wouldn't I do that? Because you don't want a beating, Neo replied with a sly smirk. Fuck you. Velkaria turned to flee. Neo used a chantless incantation. His shadow writhed and expanded, morphing into colossal hands that moved with terrifying speed. They grabbed Velkaria and pinned her in place. Let me go, you bastard. Velkaria cursed him repeatedly. After minutes of struggling and spewing insults, Velkaria finally stopped. Be gentle, she muttered, closing her eyes, having given up on escaping. Neo activated Crownless King. The stream of energy penetrated Velkaria's squishy form, and entered deep into her. Neo felt himself connecting with Velkaria on a fundamental level. Her emotions and thoughts became much more clear to him. Bond successfully formed. Bond Major 1. Bond Minor 0. Skill. Resilience, shared growth. Resilience. You can survive in the harshest of environments, and your ability to adapt to foreign or hostile environments is boosted greatly. Skill gained from Bond. Velkaria. Shared growth. You grow stronger as long as your bond grows stronger. Inherent skill of Crownless King. Works only on Bond Major. Neo's brows rose. How do you feel now? Abused. Just answer the damn question. I feel somehow connected to you. That's all. Chapter 395 Tartarus, Truth About Gods. Her response made Neo frown slightly. Connected. Does that mean the connection will ensure she doesn't betray me, or if she does, I'll sense it beforehand? He thought to himself. While the skill was undoubtedly powerful, Neo decided he needed to observe Velkaria over time to fully understand its effects. Do you know anything about resilience? He asked. Yeah, Velkaria replied in a begrudging tone. It's one of my abilities. It helps me adapt to the worlds I'm invading. Neo asked her several more questions. He left the shadow space after he received the answers to the questions he had on his mind at the moment. He returned to his room aboard the ship. The bed creaked softly as he sat down. Crownless King. Progress. 3% right pointing arrow 14%. Empathic Transcendence. Progress. 7% right pointing arrow 10%. Neo felt his skills strengthen. He leaned back against the bed. Shared growth will allow me to gain strength as Velkaria grows stronger. I need to find a way to let it out and train. He was drowning in thoughts when suddenly Neo sensed a change in his body. The bloodline debuff weakened. No way. Is this the effect of resilience? Neo was pleasantly shocked. He focused inward, feeling the bloodline debuff weaken ever so slightly. Immediately, he wondered if there a way to level up resilience. Temporarily removing the debuff was something he had learned to do. But it came at the cost of his energy. Sword intent. Essence. Everything Neo used now consumed an enormous amount of energy. If resilience could ease that burden, he needed to find a way to strengthen the skill. It doesn't look like the skill can level up right now. Or maybe it can, but it's not showing for now. Neo rubbed his chin. Even if resilience couldn't level up at the moment, Neo speculated that Crownless King's level up might strengthen the skills it granted. Neo thoughts were cut short by a short alarm echoing throughout the ship. A calm voice followed the sound. Please come to the central room for the meeting. Neo stood up. He hadn't realized how quickly the hour had passed. He stepped into the corridor, and made his way toward the central hall. He passed several rooms before reaching the hall. Inside, he found Olivia, Nicholas, and Percival seated around a circular table made of polished black wood. Come sit with us, Neo, Olivia said with a warm smile. Despite her youthful appearance, her demeanor was that of a kind mother. Once Neo settled into his seat, Olivia spoke in a composed voice. This time, Our goal is to reach the world named Tartarus. Reaching it is relatively simple. We need only two things: to get lost on the Blood Sea and to have someone with high negative karma aboard. The mention of the Blood Sea sent a chill through the room. Even Nicholas, the stoic senator, shifted slightly in his seat. Olivia continued, her voice unwavering. Tartarus will pull us toward it as long as we satisfy these two conditions. Neo was surprised to hear the word Tartarus. However, it had no connection to the underworld he knew. Tartarus was an independent world. Why is that world called Tartarus? Neo asked. Before Olivia could answer, Percival leaned back in his chair, his hammer resting casually against the table, and spoke. That world only pulls people with high negative karma. You could say it's a den of evil, and it doesn't let anyone leave once they step on its land. That's why it's named Tartarus. Olivia nodded in agreement. The fourth person originally chosen for this mission was someone with incredibly high negative karma. But we didn't expect that person would be replaced by you, Neo, and that you would become an executioner as well. Now that we know where we are going, let's do it, Percival said. I will go first. My mission is to find and collect Ares' god weapon and his corpse, if possible. According to the Sphinx, Ares died in Tartarus. Neo became confused at the sudden shift in the conversation. His attention, however, was pulled by something else. Ares is dead. You didn't know. Percival raised an eyebrow before nodding to himself. Oh, right, you're a new executioner. Listen carefully, and don't share the information I'm about to tell you. Only a few people know about this, and I'm explaining it because all executioners need to be aware of it. Percival locked eyes with Neo. All of the old gods are dead, Percival said bluntly. Ares, Gaia, Hermes, Dionysus, none of them are alive. The gods don't protect us because there is no god alive to do that. We're on our own. Neo was stunned. His mind reeled, struggling to process Percival's words. If the gods were gone, then how was Amelia, a direct descendant of Poseidon, even born? And how had their world remained safe from the outer gods all this time? Percival ignored his shock and leaned back in his chair. Olivia, however, noticed Neo's furrowed brows. Her voice was gentle as she asked, "Do you need some fresh air? We can have the meeting later if you're not feeling well." Her motherly concern was evident in her eyes, and her soft features seemed to radiate warmth and care. Neo took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "I'm okay. We should continue the meeting." "If you say so," Olivia replied, though she didn't look entirely convinced. "But if there's any problem, don't hesitate to tell us." She turned her attention back to the others and added, "My mission is to help us return from Tartarus. That world has an ability to trap anyone who enters it, and I'm here to help you all deal with that." "My mission is to collect Tartarus's sacred treasure," Nicholas said. The three of them then turned their attention to Neo. Percival misunderstood his silence and offered an explanation. "The Sphinx tells us only our missions, and not others. It ends us creating confusion on missions. It's why we started exchanging the details beforehand to help us coordinate." "Does that mean I can work alone after we reach Tartarus?" "You can, Neo," Percival said, his smile vanishing. "But I wouldn't recommend it. That place is hell." Chapter 396 Sword Saint. "I was just asking." Percival stared at him. He seemed to doubt whether Neo would truly work with them. Silence settled between them for a few moments. "What is your mission, Neo?" Olivia questioned, and continued the conversation naturally. "Blood Sea War is going to happen within a few years. Our continent will be invaded by monsters of Tartarus. My mission is to delay the war and to stop it from happening if possible," Neo said. For a moment, he wondered if the others would catch his lie. Sphinx was no selfless being who would want to protect Luminara after all. Thankfully, it seemed they were used to Sphinx assigning them strange missions. They did not question the authenticity of Neo's words. Blood Sea War. Olivia's gaze clouded with emotion. She clenched her fists as if struggling to hold back words. In the end, she remained silent. "How many monsters will invade?" Nicholas asked. "Thousands of them will come in the first wave. The weakest among them would be Paragon," Neo revealed. His words were like a bucket of cold water poured over the group. They couldn't help but glance at each other. "That means some of them will be exalted," Percival said, his usual smirk disappearing. "Not some of them," Neo shook his head. "A lot of them will be exalted. All senators, or senior Templars if you would call them, were exalted demigods. Including them, Luminara had around 100 exalted demigods. And yet, against the monsters of Tartarus, their numbers were nothing." "This answers our question about the first executioner," Percival muttered. If Tartarus is so strong, no wonder he hasn't completed his mission yet. The others nodded. The first executioner. Who is he? Neo questioned, his interest piqued. By the way they spoke of him, this, first executioner, seemed to be a formidable figure. Sword Saint, Kane Williams, Olivia answered. He left the continent centuries ago. We only discovered a few hundred years back that he was in Tartarus. However, we don't know what he's doing there right now. What did you say was the name of the Sword Saint? Sword Saint, Kane Williams. Why are you so curious? Nothing, Neo replied. I just wanted to know our senior. Neo leaned back in his chair. Kane is alive. How? He had the fate of the fallen star. No matter what we, Daniel and I, did, Kane could never survive. He would always perish after fighting a strong monster. His fingers drummed lightly against the armrest. Although he had been disappeared from the past, Kane always managed to survive his first few encounters with anomaly number 79. It was thanks to him awakening his trait. But he would die later. Neo had given Daniel multiple quests to save Kane. They had never borne any fruit. It was as if the fate was determined to kill him. The best ending for Kane was trapping him in the eternal dream, like what happened to him in my timeline. In Daniel's last timeline, he made sure it happened to Kane, and that Kane didn't die. Kane should be trapped in that dream. How did he wake up? Perhaps another demigod or awakener had awakened a trait capable of destroying eternal dreams. Even a powerful demigod, at peak paragon or exalted, could shatter those dreams, even if they did not have a trait that worked specifically against them. Eternal dreams were created using a device found inside a window. In the past, no one could wake up from them. But maybe that changed in the future. Kane is alive. A surge of excitement pulsed through Neo's veins. His grip on the chair's armrest tightened slightly before he exhaled and let go. After the meeting ended, Neo stepped towards the ship's upper deck to breathe some fresh air. The planks groaned softly beneath him as he climbed the steps. A sharp, salty wind greeted him as he emerged under the vast, starless sky. Dark clouds loomed overhead, stretching endlessly across the horizon. As much as he wanted to reach Tartarus quickly, he had to be patient. According to Olivia, they would arrive as soon as they encountered a shift point. Blood Sea was a ginormous water body, present in several worlds and dimensions. It was possible due to the bending of space. The points where space twisted and linked the Blood Sea across different worlds or dimensions were named shift points. These shift points were unstable. New ones were created and destroyed every second. If a lost traveler, with high negative karma, travels on the Blood Sea, a shift point leading to Tartarus will open before them and swallow them. Neo recalled Olivia's words. He could see the Blood Sea bubbling ominously below. The thick mass of dark-type elementals churned over its surface. Their high toxicity forced the executioners to remain inside. They didn't want to get a stomachache, as Percival had put it. Of course, stomachache was a mild way of saying death by internal corrosion. Breathing the air above the Blood Sea for too long could erode one's lungs from the inside. Touching the water, out of the question. If anyone took a dip, it wouldn't take more than a second for the Blood Sea to consume them alive. Neo took a deep breath as he stood on the deck. The fresh air entered his lungs. For him, someone who was attuned to underworld, the air of Blood Sea was no different from the breeze of a spring garden. The dark element infused surroundings, except for the grudge-filled wails of the Blood Sea, calmed Neo. As for the wails, Neo was used to the voices of darkness. They did not affect him much. Neo ignored the wails and focused. He closed his eyes, and he tried to activate his empathic transcendence trait. The elementals remained quiet. They did not respond to his call. Neo furrowed his brows and increased his focus. His senses stretched beyond the ship and into the surrounding energies. The results did not change. Just when he thought he had failed, a calm, old voice called out to him. Your skill is weak. At your current level, you need to concentrate hard, be present in a high elemental concentration environment, and the elementals must be willing to talk to you. Only then can you talk to us, given your skill activates successfully. Silvery motes of light floated around Neo. Space, he muttered. You are nearing the shift point. That's why we can talk. The shift point was where space bent, linking worlds and dimensions together. Naturally, it had a high concentration of space elementals. Neo wanted to speak with them, to understand more, but suddenly, his empathic transcendence skills output started to fluctuate. The connection flickered like a dying candle. The skill's effect was weakening. Remember our promise, child. The voice of the space elemental began to fade. The silvery motes trembled before dissolving into the night. Help our loved one. If you do that, we will give you another favor. The elementals for your flower, we will help you talk with them. Their voices disappeared, leaving behind only the howling winds and the bubbling sea. Neo tried to use his skill again, only to be met with silence. A notification appeared before his eyes. Chapter 397 Olivia von Villiers. Empathic Transcendence. Progress. 10% right pointing arrow 12%. His control over the skill had increased. However, activating it still felt like trying to hold onto an impossibly slippery bar of soap. Neo massaged his brows. Space will help me talk with other elementals. Does that mean they will ask the other elementals to listen to me? He frowned. Would the other elementals even follow Space's words? The space elementals seemed quite intelligent. Unlike air, who only knew how to prank, and water, who was lazier than a sloth, Space was mature and willing to talk. If it's so desperate to ask for my help, its loved one must be in huge danger. While he was drowned in thoughts, he sensed someone entering the deck. I hope I'm not disturbing you, Olivia said. It's fine. I was only looking around, Neo replied, turning to face her. His gaze flickered toward the horizon, where the sea churned unnaturally. Seems like we are about to reach the shift point. That's good news. The faster we reach our location, the faster we can complete our mission. She stepped beside him, resting her hands on the railings as she watched the distance. Despite her calm and mature demeanor, a trace of anxiety flashed in her eyes, and she gripped the rails tightly, her knuckles turning white. Neo tried to ignore it. However, her actions made him irritated. What is it? He asked. Pardon, I don't understand your question, Olivia replied, trying to hide her anxiousness. Why are you worried? Neo asked again. Olivia opened her mouth, instinctively wanting to dismiss the question. However, she stopped when she noticed the maturity behind Neo's gaze. It was unnatural for a child his age. Exalted. Heir of the underworld. Both positions sounded grand, but they weren't easy to reach or handle. Out of trillions, only a single demigod reached exalted every 300 years. That fact alone spoke volumes about the difficulty of the path. And the underworld. Even exalted demigods hesitated to set foot in that wretched place. Yet Neo, an immortal, must have visited it multiple times. It was no wonder he was far more mature than he should be. Sighing, Olivia decided to be honest. How is Leonora? She asked softly. Neo's expression remained unreadable. The affairs of the dead aren't allowed to be revealed. I see. A trace of sadness flickered in Olivia's eyes. She smiled ruefully, lowering her head as she tried to suppress the tears threatening to appear. Her shoulders tensed. Neo observed her in silence. Why didn't you try to revive her? He asked suddenly. The time mages of your clan could have saved Leonora. He already knew the answer. But he asked anyway. Sometimes, people needed a reason to release what they had buried deep inside. And it wouldn't do him any good if his mission partner's mental state was in tatters. An unreliable ally was worse than a competent enemy. I suppose it's fine to tell you, Olivia said, inhaling deeply to compose herself. She exhaled slowly, gathering her bearings. Our clan received a vision of the future. Of a war. It devoured everything. Nothing was spared. The god clans fell. The demigods were slaughtered. Her fingers trembled as she clenched them into a fist. It was a horrific sight. She lifted a hand to cover her eye as if the memory was refusing to disappear. That must be the Blood Sea War, Neo said. Maybe it was. We still haven't found many answers. All that the vision showed us was no one will survive. Not me, not my family, not a single person. The air around them felt heavier. The distant wails of the Blood Sea rose and fell, mingling with eerie bubbling of Blood Sea. Olivia's grip on the railing tightened. And, that. Olivia choked up. A storm of emotions flashed across her face. Grief, regret, guilt. She clenched her jaw, trying to suppress the tremble in her voice. We became afraid. The god clans searched frantically. They decided to eliminate anything that could threaten the future. But the vision did not change. That's why. She struggled to speak, knowing what she, had done. We let Leonora die. The underworld is safe, much safer than the world of the living. The monarch of death, the strongest god, lives there. No beast and no monster can harm that place. If Leonora could secure a foothold there, before billions arrived in the underworld after dying in the war and the lands of dead turned more chaotic, she could live peacefully as a respected figure. She would be safe there, Olivia said. Neo leaned against the railing. Is that why you bribed the Grim Reapers? He chuckled. No wonder they gave her a breathing spell. Giving a breathing spell to a soul hunter was entirely within a Grim Reaper's jurisdiction. They were allowed to choose their successors and could favor anyone. Olivia remained silent. Her mind was filled with worries. Was her daughter eating well? Had she adjusted to the harsh environment of the underworld? Even if it was for her future safety, was it truly okay to let her stay in the underworld, when even exalted demigods feared that place? The Templars from the Temple of Death had reassured her that the rumors of the underworld was overexaggerated. That it was not as bad as everyone made it out to be. However, Olivia could not help but worry. This plan was dangerous. That was why they had never tried to send Leonora to the underworld before. It was only when Leonora unexpectedly died that they decided to follow through it. Leonora wouldn't want you to cry like that, Neo said. Olivia might be an exalted demigod, but she was a mother too. She and her husband had always doted on their only daughter. Just the thought of Leonora being in the underworld made them feel as if their hearts were being ripped apart. Neo remained silent. He let Olivia reel in her emotions. While the two stood in silence, Neo sensed the space elementals growing in numbers. The silvery motes of light flickered around him, drifting like fireflies in the dim air. The doors to the deck creaked open, and Percival and Nicholas entered. Olivia quickly wiped her tears before they could see her distress. "We are near the shift point," Percival said, as he surveyed their surroundings. Suddenly, the whales coming from the Blood Sea disappeared, along with gravity. The ship plummeted. For a split second, it was as if they had been airborne all along, and now falling from the sky. Then, with a deafening splash, the ship crashed back into the Blood Sea. The entire process took less than a second. It sent a sharp jolt through their bodies, leaving their hearts pounding. The shift points were dangerous to use. Right now, they had been lucky. Their ship had fallen into another world's Blood Sea in a straight position. In the worst-case scenarios, the ship might appear within the Blood Sea, submerged. It would have been an instant annihilation. "Where is the Tartarus?" Percival asked, after he gathered his bearings. "I don't see anything. Did we arrive in the wrong place?" "Artemis' blessing says it's near," Olivia answered. The blessing allowed them to find a path to their destination. Chapter 398 Arriving at Tartarus. The blessing allowed them to find a path to their destination. It worked only when the destination was within the same world as the blessing user. Olivia activated Wayfarer, one of the abilities granted by Artemis' blessing. A soft glow traced her fingertips as she pointed straight ahead. "There. I don't see anything but the Blood Sea there," Percival replied, frowning. Neo furrowed his brows. Something about this felt off. Driven by instinct, he stepped forward and stretched his hand in the direction Olivia had pointed. His palm brushed against an invisible surface. "Something is here. It seems like a barrier. I don't feel anything, though." Percival moved his hand around the same place as Neo, his fingers grasping at empty air. He felt nothing. Maybe it reacts only to those with negative karma. Neo pressed his hand against the unseen obstruction again. It was a physical barrier. As long as he could touch it, he could break it. His fingers dug into the invisible surface. He clenched his hands and tore it apart. A fracture split open in space, revealing a land beyond it. "Let's go inside." Neo stepped through the tear without hesitation. The moment he crossed, a fresh breeze greeted him. He looked around. A vast stretch of sand extended before him, the shore marked by the rhythmic lapping of dark waters. The Blood Sea still existed at the very edge of the sandy ground. Suddenly, the debuff over Neo's bloodline weakened slightly. A frown appeared on his face. This wasn't the resilience skill's doing. Why did it happen? As Neo focused, trying to sense what had changed, he realized a surprising truth. The world of the living of Tartarus and the underworld of Tartarus were one and the same. Since Neo was standing in what was both the underworld and the world of the living at the same time, his debuff had been partially lifted. "What are you thinking so hard about?" Percival questioned as he arrived. The tear in space vanished by the time Olivia and Nicholas stepped through. Neo turned to check the place where they had come from. The barrier was gone, completely erased, as if it had never existed. He shifted his gaze back to the group. "Seems like we need to find another way to return. For now, let's look for the Sword Saint." Neo activated Wayfarer. A strange sensation welled up in his mind, as if something was asking for a destination. Sword Saint Kane Williams. The response was immediate. A trail of silvery mana, visible only to Neo, appeared before him. It shimmered faintly, stretching into the distance like a guiding thread. Neo and the others exchanged glances before nodding. Without hesitation, they followed the trail inland. The landscape gradually shifted. The vast shoreline gave way to dense vegetation, and soon, they stepped into a forest. Towering trees with thick, gnarled trunks loomed over them. Their sprawling canopies blocked most of the sunlight. Thick scent of damp earth and ancient wood wafted in the air. The presence of powerful monsters was present all around the forest. For now, Neo and others ignored the monsters and kept moving forward. After traversing the wilderness, they arrived at a secluded clearing. A small, unassuming hut stood in the center. They stopped a good distance away. I will go check. If it's safe, I will give you all a signal, Neo said. A signal? How? Olivia asked, worried about him. Neo formed a weak intent clone and left it with them. Since he could communicate through the clone, it would serve as an effective means of relaying information. With that settled, he approached the hut. The door creaked open at his touch. Inside, the space was barren, only a single wooden table stood at the center. A girl, seemingly in her early 20s, sat at the table. One side of her hair was half black, and the other was half yellowish golden. Her golden eyes remained fixed on the steaming cup in her hands. When Neo entered, she slowly raised her gaze. Where is Cain? I don't see him here. Neo questioned. According to Wayfarer, Cain was supposed to be here. The girl, still seated at the wooden table, traced the rim of her cup with a single finger. Wayfarer isn't as accurate as you think. There are plenty of ways to trick it if you know how it works, she replied calmly. I see. Neo stopped speaking when the realization struck him. His expression darkened. Did you read my mind just now? I did. Her golden eyes remained locked onto his. Is there anything wrong with it? She asked, tilting her head slightly. Without waiting for Neo's response, she placed the cup down with a soft clink and reached for her sword. The air inside the hut seemed to shift. Master said he doesn't need help from people who are weak enough to be a burden, she stated, standing up in one smooth motion. The weight of her presence grew heavier, and the atmosphere became suffocating. That's why I'm here to test you. Neo's brows furrowed. What do you mean? Before he could finish his sentence, the girl released her aura. A force crashed down upon the room like an invisible tidal wave, shaking the wooden walls and sending a gust of wind surging through the open doorway. The weight of her presence threatened to crush Neo. Ellipsis. Chapter 399 Cain, Dragon Clans. It wasn't just heavy. Her aura contained something far worse. The girl's presence seemed to swell. Her golden eyes shone with a cold chill as she stared down at Neo. Dragon fear. The ground trembled beneath them. The air thickened, warping and twisting as if space itself bent to her will. A primal fear crept into Neo's mind. I suppose this long should be enough. Neo asked calmly. The girl flinched. He seemed unaffected by her ability, dragon fear. Quote ellipsis dot. How are you okay? She asked. While the attack was powerful, it was a mental attack, and I'm a darkness user. I have a strong mind. Ava's looked at him with a tense gaze. A strong mind. That wasn't unusual. Almost everyone on Tartarus had that. Her ability was supposed to work on all of them. It had broken stronger men, reduced warriors to trembling wrecks. Yet Neo. He shrugged it off like nothing. Suddenly, a third, familiar voice echoed through the room. Good job, Ava. I will take care of it from here. The space around the second chair rippled like a disturbed reflection in water, revealing a man who had been invisible until now. I wasn't invisible. I was in a pseudo-gap. The man, Cain, said, having read Neo's thoughts. Instinctively, Neo shielded his thoughts to stop anyone from peeking into them. Oh, you can do that? Cain questioned, surprised. His tousled brown hair and carefree smile were unmistakably familiar. He looked no older than Neo remembered. If anything, he looked younger. I'm sorry about my daughter's test. I asked her to do it, he said with a small laugh. You can call your friends now. With a snap of Cain's fingers. The barren room changed. The plain wooden walls shifted and expanded. Within moments, the simple hut transformed into a luxurious, two-story house. Cain now sat comfortably on a plush sofa, while Ava disappeared into the kitchen, preparing tea. Neo remained standing near the doors. He doesn't remember me. Neo had expected this outcome. He had prepared for it. He had told himself it wouldn't matter. Cain was alive. That was enough. But standing here, watching him smile and speak as if they were strangers, made Neo's heart clench. He didn't understand why. He shouldn't have felt this way. But he was sad. The other three executioners entered the house. Have a seat, Cain said, gesturing toward the chairs. They nodded and followed his words. Ava returned from the kitchen, carrying a tray of tea. The cups clinked softly as she placed them on the table. The group talked as they took a sip of the warm tea. Why are you people here? Kane asked. He set his cup down with a soft clink and explained. The contact between Tartarus and anything outside is rarely possible. That's why I don't know your current situation and the reason why you came to this place. I'm here for Ares, god weapon and his corpse, if possible. The sacred treasure. To help them leave Tartarus. You can leave Tartarus. Kane's brows lifted as he turned his gaze toward Olivia. Yes. That's surprising. Kane leaned back slightly, crossing his arms. You should hide that ability. If anyone in Tartarus finds out about it, they will do anything to get their hands on it. Tartarus was a prison for those with high negative karma. Most of its inhabitants were darkness users. The unique nature of darkness had shaped a brutal society where people devoured their opponents for stats, skills, bloodlines, and more. I will keep that in mind. Olivia nodded. What about you? Kane's eyes locked onto Neo. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he increased the output of his intent, weaving countless fake intent and wrapping his real thoughts with them. I'm here to stop the Blood Sea War. Neo planned to reveal his true mission to Kane, to ask for his help in blooming Everwitch Violet. But that conversation had to wait until they were alone, far from the watchful eyes of the executioners. What about you? Why haven't you returned to our world yet? Percival asked. The unfamiliar way with which he talked with Kane made Neo frown. Apollo and Kane should know each other. Why is Apollo acting as if this is their first meeting? I cannot do that even if I wanted to. Tartarus never lets anyone leave once it captures them. Honestly, I doubt you can do it either. Kane shrugged as if it didn't bother him. Even if I could leave, I wouldn't, he continued. I have something to do here. Of course, I will help my fellow homelanders with their task, as long as it's not too absurd. But first, let's have breakfast. We don't have time to waste. Eat while you still can. Kane interrupted Percival with a casual wave of his hand. Trust me, this is the only time you can have some peace. Taking Ares' god weapon isn't going to be easy. You know where it is. I do. I also have a way to help you guys get the sacred treasure and a ticket out of this damned hellhole. The only problem is, Kane trailed off. His fingers tapped idly on the wooden surface before he pointed at Neo with his chin. Blood Sea War. Since you came here to stop that, I suppose the war will be between Tartarus and Earth. Yes, Neo replied. Kane let out a sigh. I have no idea why it is going to happen and how to stop that, he admitted. Actually, I do know someone who has the ability to start the war. The problem is, they will never start a war. As he spoke, Ava entered the room, balancing a tray of food in her hands. The wooden plates clattered softly as she set them down. Steam rose from the freshly prepared dishes. She kept glancing secretly at Neo as she served. What do you mean by that? Olivia questioned. Kane took a slow sip from his cup before continuing. Tartarus is a hellhole. The strong eat the weak and get stronger. They keep getting stronger unless they lose their mind from darkness and start a rampage. It used to happen every decade or two. Then the dragon clans appeared and stopped the constant rampages from happening. To do that, they offered people their bloodline and used it to rule over Tartarus. How is that related to the Blood Sea War? Olivia asked. She was clearly eager to find a way to stop the upcoming war. Kane leaned forward, as he mulled over her words. The patriarch of the Blood Dragon clan can control beasts and make them impervious to the Blood Sea, for some time, at least. If someone attacks you from the Blood Sea, they need the help of the Blood Dragon clan. That would mean the Blood Dragon clan. Whatever you are thinking is wrong. Blood Dragon clan is one of the only places left in Tartarus with conscience. They won't do something like starting a war and massacring another planet. We have proof that the war will happen soon. That's why I said I have no idea why the war would happen, and how to stop it. Chapter 400 Dungeon Abyss of Nightmares. His answer made all of them frown. The breakfast continued, and Kane made small talk, explaining about the situation of Tartarus to them. Everyone in Tartarus, except those who were born here, has a connection to their own world's world core. Do you know what that means? He asked. They don't care if Tartarus' world core is destroyed. Percival said. You are correct. Everyone here hates being in Tartarus. Most of them are looking for a way out. The easiest option is to destroy Tartarus' world core. Olivia completed his words. Then what about those who were born here? Their core would be linked to Tartarus' world core. They must want to protect Tartarus at all costs. I didn't expect you guys to know so much about world cores. Kane joked, then explained. Wars happened in the past between both sides. Some wanted to find and destroy Tartarus, World Core and escape this hellhole, others wanted to stop them. It wasn't until the 7 dragon clans appeared that a ceasefire happened between both sides. Cain chewed his food before he added. The current aim of everyone in Tartarus is to find its World Core. After that, they will force the World Core to send them back. The executioners frowned. The way Cain worded his explanation made one thing very clear. No one knows where the World Core is. Olivia asked, hoping otherwise, or else their mission's difficulty would spike. Unfortunately, no. Cain shook his head. The World Core hid itself to protect its life. I don't think I need to explain why it did so. Everyone nodded. Since Tartarus kept its inhabitants locked inside, there was no surprise they wanted to escape, and planned to destroy the core to achieve that. The breakfast ended. Ava took the dishes to the kitchen. There, she used a spell to clean them instantly before bringing dessert for the guests. What about our tasks? Percival questioned. Remember what I said about not knowing the location of the World Core? Actually, we do have a rough idea where it is. Cain stood up and went inside the room. He brought out pen and paper and drew a diagram on it. Abyss of Nightmares. It's hiding in there. What is that? Seeing Olivia's frown, Cain explained more. Think of it as a dungeon, but on a larger scale. It's bigger than entire worlds and with multiple floors. Dungeon. Oh, my bad, I forgot you guys wouldn't know what a dungeon is. Cain let out a chuckle. During my time, almost everyone knew what dungeons were. Only Neo understood that Cain was talking about dungeons that appeared in light novels and anime. Think of it as a place where mob monsters, extremely powerful monsters, and natural treasures that are born due to high concentration of energy are found, Cain explained. He drew 7 emblems around the diagram. You guys are in luck. The 9th Grand Expedition will enter the Abyss of Nightmares in a week. If you would have been a bit more late, you would have to enter that place alone. Grand expeditions were formed by combining the most powerful forces of the 7 dragon clans. Their goal was to enter the Abyss of Nightmares, map it, record its environment, and their main goal was to locate the World Core hiding within. All past 8 grand expeditions had met a dreadful end. None of them could locate the World Core. Their catastrophic defeat was what led the survivors to name the place, Abyss of Nightmares. The 9th expedition was formed after carefully selecting the most powerful talents from across Tartarus. Its preparation alone had taken 500 years. You guys will go with them. I will introduce you to their leader and help you join the expedition. You will be safer with them, and you don't need to worry, the dragon clans are prepared. This time, the expedition will be successful. Cain's words were blunt. Percival finally understood why Cain had said they won't get rest anytime soon after today. If you want us to join the expedition, I suppose Ares' god weapon and the sacred treasure are both there. Do you want us to help the expedition at the same time? Cain laughed when he heard Percival. I'm sorry for laughing, but yeah, something similar to Ares' god weapon was recorded in the information left behind by the 4th Grand Expedition. I will tell you about it later. As for the sacred treasure, since the World Core is there, it must be there too. While Ava was taking away the plates used for desserts, she mumbled to herself, helping the expedition. I shouldn't have expected anything better from people who willingly entered Tartarus. Hearing her, Percival tilted his head. Was there something wrong with what I said? Are the dragon clans opposed to outsiders? Hardly. In fact, they are welcoming to outsiders. The problem is, Cain looked at the 4 of them. Olivia and Nicholas can join the expedition. They won't be anywhere near the top forces in terms of strength, but they will be good enough. The 2 of you, though, won't survive a day there, Cain said. What's the problem with us? Percival narrowed his eyes. What's the problem? Cain seemed surprised. Don't tell me you don't understand what is wrong with you two. He stared at Percival. You are a peak Empyrean. How do you think you will fare in a place that gives trouble to an army of Exalted? I can make my breakthrough to Paragon any day now. And even in my current state, I can fight Exalted. Fighting is not the same as being equal in strength. The atmosphere of the room shifted. Cain frowned. The first 3 ranks are mortals. Even if you, an Empyrean, can fight Exalted, which I doubt, you aren't at the same level as those beyond mortal ranks. Just hearing true names will kill you. And how long can you even fight Exalted ranks? 5 minutes. 10 minutes. That's far from enough. The expedition can take weeks, months, or years. You won't survive there with your stamina. He spoke in a cold tone. You must be banking on your ancestors' blessing that allows you to use his spirit, sunshine. But are you sure that you can use sunshine within the abyss of nightmares? That place is special. It might not allow a spirit like sunshine to manifest. After berating Percival, he turned to Neo. You are weirder than him. You don't have a spirit's boost like him, and you are a grade 5 paragon, but you seem much stronger, not to mention the other source of strength you have inside you. Neo was surprised. Even if Cain could use intent, it was far from what Neo could use. He hadn't expected Cain to be able to sense Neo was different, thanks to him being a Heavenbreaker. What rank can you fight at your current level? Cain asked Neo. Grade 5 or grade 4 exalted. That's barely anything. The difference between each grade of exalted rank is more than the difference between peak grade 1 paragon and a new grade 5 exalted. At your current combat strength, grade 3 exalted monsters will crush you and use you as a toothpick without any trouble. Chapter 401 Asking for a favor. That was very encouraging. Thank you. Cain laughed when he heard Neo's reply. He stood up, stretching his arms above his head before rolling his shoulders. Percival, I don't know how, but make your breakthrough today. I will start training you and Neo from tomorrow. Chances are low that it will be enough to prepare you two for the grand expedition, but we need to do our best. Cain stretched again, letting out a tired yawn. What about the rest of us? Olivia asked, her arms crossed. Do whatever you want. Just don't get eaten by some hungry monster. We have a lot of those here. Cain said before making his way toward the door. After a moment of contemplation, Percival decided to go out and make his breakthrough. Olivia and Nicholas followed him, intending to protect him during his breakthrough. Neo was the only one left behind. He focused on creating essence. Time passed slowly, and soon the deep orange of the evening arrived. Cain returned, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. The rich aroma filled the room as he placed one beside Neo and sat behind him. Can I be a bit rude? Cain asked, taking a sip from his cup. Go ahead. How are you using world energy? Neo raised a brow. You can tell it's world energy. I can. It's not like you are trying to hide it, and it's too pure to be the energy of an awakener. Cain stared at Neo, his expression unreadable. What are you? Neo remained silent. I suppose you wouldn't answer me so easily. Cain exhaled through his nose, then reached into his coat and pulled out a thin book. He placed it on the table between them. Neo glanced at it. What is it? Energy concealment spell. It's useful for you since you are going to join the grand expedition soon. You wouldn't want to reveal you can use world energy to countless darkness users, would you? Who knows, they might attack you to devour whatever is allowing you to use world energy. I thought the expedition was made up of righteous people, Neo asked with furrowed brows. Cain laughed, shaking his head. You make good jokes. The people here work together in only 3 cases. Their interests align, the top brass of the dragon clans are forcing them, or they are planning to backstab someone. He leaned forward, his fingers drumming lightly on the wooden table. The expedition members are all from the 7 dragon clans, but you can never be too safe. Anyone can be overtaken by greed. Neo looked at the spell book, then back at Cain. After a moment of contemplation, he picked it up and flipped through the pages. He confirmed that the spell was genuine, and stored the book in his shadow space. I'm a Heavenbreaker. I see. You don't look surprised. Well, I expected it the moment I saw you using world energy. Something like that is only possible if you are a Heavenbreaker, or if you have the blessing of a world directly. Your world energy felt different from Moon's, and Earth would never give its world energies direct access to anyone. The only choice left was you being a Heavenbreaker, Cain explained. You are quite knowledgeable about Heavenbreakers. Of course, I am. I've been trying to become one for ages. Never succeeded until now though. Cain chuckled bitterly. You satiated my curiosity, so ask anything you would like to. I know you must have a lot of questions about this place. Neo stared at Cain for a few seconds. There was a lot he wanted to ask. How was life treating Cain? Why was he on Tartarus? How did he wake up? When did he marry and have a kid? However, Neo was not someone who had the right to ask such close questions anymore. I want your help. Neo took out the Everwitch Violet from his shadow space. The dark petals of the flower caught Cain's eye. That is, Cain questioned. A flower with powerful healing nature. It needs death, darkness, time, life, holy, and void elementals to bloom. Until then, it can't be used. You want my help to make it bloom. I guess Sphinx told you about my trait. He rubbed his chin with furrowed brows, then shook his head. I can't help you with that. Before Neo could say anything, Cain raised his hands and pulled his sleeves back. His hands were covered in black sigils. My trait has been sealed by these. I can't talk with elementals or use my sword. What? Who did that to you? Cain was surprised when he sensed the suppressed intensity behind Neo's words. Calm down. It's not permanent. I can deal with this myself. Only it will take time. Since you need the flower, I think you need it urgently to heal someone. Yes, you are right. Then, you can't wait for my trait to be unsealed. You will have to bloom it yourself. Of course, I will still help as much as I can. Cain stood up. He walked toward the door. Follow me. They entered deep into the house. The air grew colder as the night arrived. Cain brought him to a room filled with safes. The metallic scent of stored artifacts lingered in the air. He looked over all of them and stopped in front of the safe at the end of the room. After entering the password, he opened it. Inside, several vials of blood were placed. You have a darkness element, right? Can you use it? I can. Good. Among the elements you need for the flower, how many do you have and how many can you use? Cain asked as he looked through the blood vials. I have all of them, but I can't use void, Neo answered, although he didn't understand Cain's intentions. Cain stopped. He turned around to look at Neo, his expression shifting from curiosity to something more intense. I don't think Earth had void affinity. Yeah, it doesn't. Chapter 402 Pond. Wait, let me get this straight. Cain massaged his brows, half shocked, half confused. You got affected by void, which led to you gaining your void affinity, and it probably reset your rank and everything. After that, you reached Paragon, became a Heavenbreaker. Somehow, you are walking on two paths of power. Not only that, you can use 5 elements to a sufficient degree. Cain didn't know what to say. He knew the executioners chosen by Sphinx wouldn't be normal, but Neo was above and beyond anything he could have imagined. You are right. Neo's nonchalant attitude made Cain smile bitterly. He used to think he was a genius, but meeting Neo was making him doubt that claim. Shaking his head, he returned his focus to the safe and the blood vials. He took out 7 of them and gave them to Neo. Use darkness to devour them. Ava will tell you when to do that. What are these? Concentrated bloodlines. Devouring them will allow you to use their skill temporarily. Since you can use 5 elements, I gave you 5 vials that will let you talk with elementals of your elements. As for the last 2 vials, they can let you talk with elementals of void. You haven't awakened that affinity, hence you need 2 vials to increase your perception of them. Cain didn't know about Neo's empathic transcendence trait. His solution would work for normal demigods. For Neo, it was 100 times better. It would increase his trait's effectiveness by several folds, even if temporarily. I would love to give you more, but those are the only skills I have for this task. Cain and Neo returned to the main hall. The wooden floor creaked beneath their steps. Ava, come here. Ava arrived a few moments later. Is there anything you need, Master? Cain's eyebrow twitched at the word, Master. However, he didn't point it out, having given up on correcting the way his daughter addressed him. Take Neo to the Yasugori Pond. That place has a high concentration of all elementals. It will increase his chances of talking to them. Master, the pond is too precious. Just because they are from your homeland. Ava, we had this talk last night. Let's not do it again. Ava nodded with a clenched jaw. Neo looked at the father-daughter duo with a silent gaze. The pond was something clearly important, maybe something like a limited resource. But Neo didn't have the luxury to look for another method. Follow me. Ava and Neo left the 2-floor house. The air outside was crisp, carrying the scent of earth and distant foliage. They navigated through the forest for hours. Towering trees cast long shadows over them, their branches swaying gently in the wind. Most of the monsters stayed away after sensing Ava's dragon aura. The ones that approached were quickly dispatched by her. The duo stopped before a small hill. They stepped onto the broken staircase hidden at the corner of the mountain's foot. It was covered in fallen leaves, cobwebs, and the steps were cracked and uneven. As the two walked forward, Neo opened his mouth. Your dad is quite hospitable. You are right, Ava replied with a hint of pride. Not many people know it, but he is very kind. Not many people know it. Neo noticed the nuance behind Ava's words. It seemed as if Cain did not have a good image in Tartarus. They are too afraid of Master to notice the kindness in his actions. Before Neo could ask more, they reached the mountain top. It was a small, flat area. The air was clearer here, filled with energies that made Neo's skin tingle. A massive tree stood at the side. Its roots twisted into the rocky ground, while a shimmering pond lay in the center. The water was still yet held an ethereal glow, reflecting the sky above like a mirror. Neo could feel the huge amount of elementals present in the area. This pond, Yasugori, has a special property that attracts elementals. By sacrificing it in small amounts, you can ask for favors from them. Neo raised his brow. It was a lot better than he had imagined. Take out the things Master gave you. He brought out the blood vials from his shadow space and prepared to enter the pond. Is there anything I need to be careful about? The amount of elementals you can talk to at once depends on your mental capacity. Don't try to be greedy and talk with too many of them, and, wait, stop. What? Why are you entering the pond like that? Remove your clothes. Ava looked at him with an annoyed gaze. Is that necessary? Yes. Neo clicked his tongue. Even if he wasn't embarrassed normally, this situation was different. He didn't want to get naked in front of Ava, who was like his niece to him. Remove the clothes, Ava said with narrowed eyes. Yasugori is a sacred place belonging to our ancestors. Stepping into it clothed is rude. Neo nodded. He followed her words and removed his clothes, placing them neatly on a nearby rock. The air was cold against his bare skin, sending a brief shiver down his spine as he stepped closer to the pond. Ava's eyes widened slightly when she noticed his scars. Under the faint glow of the moon, crisscrossing lines of old wounds marred his body. She had expected Neo to be a mage since his mind was powerful, but given the state of his body, he was a warrior, one who had seen more fights than she could have imagined. What do I do now? Ava flinched, her train of thoughts coming to a screeching halt when she heard Neo. She had to gather her bearings before she answered. Devour the vials. Since they are concentrated bloodlines, you will gain their skills. It will increase your perception towards elementals. Then, you can use the Yasugori as a bargaining chip for whatever you want. Keep in mind that you shouldn't try to talk to a large amount of elementals at once. Even one with your mind will break if you go overboard, Ava explained again and again. Neo nodded and took out the Everwitch Violet. Ava seemed to recognize the flower, but Neo wasn't paying attention to her. Chapter 403 Elementals. He used darkness to devour the blood vials. For a moment, nothing was different. It felt the same as he usually did while devouring things. Then, suddenly, a rush of power exploded within his body. Bloodline. Devoured. Gained bloodline. Damaged. Bloodline. Devoured. Gained bloodline. Bloodline. Devoured. Bloodline. Neo doubled over. His insides started to feel hot. It was as if he was being burnt. The bloodlines stored in the blood vials started to seep into his veins. They tried to usurp his original bloodlines and replace them. Affinity towards death element is being strengthened due to your new bloodline skill. Affinity towards darkness element is being strengthened due to your new. Affinity towards life element is being strengthened. Affinity towards time element. Affinity towards holy. Neo felt as if he was gaining new senses. It was overwhelming. His mind was being bombarded with huge amounts of information. This feels the same as when I had yet to control my intense senses. He struggled to stand straight. His intense senses started to go haywire. Unknown voices spoke to him, and he could feel countless tiny hands grabbing him. Neo. Why are you trying to talk to us? Child, you should stop. This is killing you. The space around him seemed to warp and twist, the air thick with elemental energy. Red, black, and green motes of light floated around him, illuminating the night with their eerie glow. Neo recognized them as death, darkness, and life elementals. There were more present. Time, holy. Their colors were unique. It was Neo's first time seeing something like that. Death and time observed him silently. Holy floated around him curiously. Life healed his body, which was rapidly breaking apart. Darkness tried to cover him, protecting him from the flood of information that was harming his mind. Neo felt like his mind would burst. The pain was hard to describe. His mind was being stretched impossibly thin and used as a medium by the elementals to converse. The more elementals appeared, the thinner his mind was stretched. If not for Neo being a heavenbreaker and having a powerful mind, he would have died the moment he tried something absurd like this. Do whatever you are planning quickly. You don't have much time left. Ava shouted, her voice strained with urgency. Neo struggled to breathe. He couldn't even think properly, but he spoke, his body driven by instinct to complete his goal. I want all of you to help me bloom this flower. Darkness elementals moved before he had completed his words. The life elementals healed Neo but refused to flow into the flower. They flowed into the flower, helping its petals bloom ever so slightly. The flow of elementals increased the burden on Neo's mind, but he was thankful to them. Darkness listened to him easily. You want to save the tyrant. She will kill more when she is saved. The life elementals healed Neo but refused to flow into the flower. I will give you guys the water from this pond, if you help me, Neo said with gritted teeth. He had to hurry. He could feel his mind on the verge of being completely broken. Even if he revived, he had to start from the beginning, so he had to get it done in one go. Time elementals never said anything. Neo sensed some sort of unhappy emotions within them. But they moved. After absorbing a bit of the water from the pond, they flowed into the flower. The flower bloomed a bit more. Holy elementals followed soon after. Don't forget we helped you, Tilda. Their presence caused the bloom to reach halfway. Only death and life remained. Neo wanted to say something to convince them, but he could hardly move. The water around him had turned red from the blood pouring out of his nerves that constantly burst. The darkness, time, and holy elementals swirled around him, flowing into the flower in huge quantities. Every elemental that helped him consumed a small amount of water from the Yasugori pond. It was negligible amount for a single elemental. However, given the huge numbers of elementals, the amount they took continued to pile, causing the pond to rapidly shrink. I wanted to wait until I got others' help before talking with Void, but I don't have that much time. Neo grabbed the last 2 remaining blood vials and devoured them. Bloodline. Devoured. Gained bloodline. Damaged. Affinity towards void element is being strengthened due to your new bloodline skill. Suddenly, everything felt silent. It took Neo a moment to realize he had lost his hearing. He raised his head, using what was left of his intent vision, to stare at the violet motes of light floating in the sky. The void corrupts you. The void elementals floated towards him. They were beautiful. Their surface shimmered, and tiny violet suns seemed to exist within each of them. Neo reached out his hand, trying to grab them. Snap out of it. If not for Moon's intent shouting at him, Neo would have remained transfixed. He pulled his hand back swiftly when he realized what he was doing. Why did you call for us? The void elementals seemed relaxed. On the other hand, death and life had turned hostile. The 2 elementals faced the void elementals as if they had met a sworn enemy. The violet motes of light ignored death and life. Their focus was directed at Neo. Neo fell before he could complete his words. The burden brought by void elementals pushed him beyond his limits. His bloodlines started to burn. The new bloodlines tried to take over, while the original 2 fought back. The pond was slick with his blood, pooling around him as his body convulsed. Neo's body writhed. His veins glowed faintly, alternating between dark crimson and a sickly green as the new and old bloodlines clashed. The pain was excruciating. His muscles tightened and his bones felt as if they were being crushed. Chapter 404 Elementals 2. His body was beet red. Veins bulged and wriggled as he struggled to breathe. Flower. Your help. Red lightning, a soft green glow, and purple bubbles with miniature suns within them floated around Neo. Death and life were wary of Void, which was surprising. Just like how Void could corrupt life, death could harm life too. A powerful death would have no trouble killing a weak life. It seemed contradictory that life was fine with death, but not Void. The elementals remained stationary. They seemed to have no intention of helping. The pond should have made them help Neo. But life seemed to have a personal bias against Elizabeth. Death also refused to help, and Void just watched, as if the pond didn't interest it. Neo, on the verge of fainting, suddenly felt the presence of another group of elementals. Silvery motes appeared around him. Please, help him, the space elementals spoke. They had tried to not manifest, since it put a great burden on Neo. However, given the situation, they had no other choice. When the other elementals remained silent, Space spoke again. Death, he is the spawn of your loved one. Why are you refusing to help him? You said it yourself. He is the spawn of my loved one. A life that was created by one who was blessed by death. The death elemental's voice was filled with suppressed intensity. The red lightning surrounding Neo grew erratic. We have no intention of helping the mistake of my loved one. Calling him a mistake, the space elementals sighed. You act as if you hate your loved one and his spawn, but have you not helped the little one until now? Whenever he needed your help, you protected him. You were the reason why he learned to manifest his death. So, why are you not helping when he asked for it directly? The space said. Why you? The powerful red lightning crashed against the pond's edges and caused the surroundings to wilt. I never helped him. The death elementals turned to Neo. I did no such thing. Do not listen to him. Neo chuckled weakly. He remembered the events during the shadow trial. Back then, he had lost the mastery of death for a period of time. During those times, death still warned him when someone tried to attack him. Something like that shouldn't have been possible. It only happened since the death elementals tried to protect him. This was something Neo realized only now. Neo understood what he needed to do in order to receive death's grace. Death, help me, please. Do you think we will do it just because you ask sincerely? Death snapped at him. Death alternated its focus between the flower and Neo, who seemed in immense pain. Neo groans made it wince. Fine. Just this once. But don't expect us to help you again. The storm of red lightning began to flow into the Everwitch Violet. Some of the death elementals took the water from the pond, while others did not. Even though all of them were helping, they seemed to be capable of making their own decisions. Why go to this extent, child? Life questioned. The woman is a merciless killer. She is the antithesis of you, who sacrificed himself to save the world. Because I promised to save her. Life watched him wordlessly for a brief moment before it moved. The elementals of life took the water of the pond and flowed into the flower. The flower was on the verge of attaining a complete bloom. Only one more, and Neo would be able to save Elizabeth. Void. You have harmed the blessed of the ones who follow our path, Hargraves. So, give us one argument. One reason why we should help you. Neo frowned. The elementals seemed to be aware of the Shadow Trial events. Had the Shadow Supreme told them others about what transpired back then? That was the only reason Neo could think of for the reason why elementals of other elements were aware of it. But how much did the news spread that every single elemental knows about it? Neo chuckled amidst the pain. Given the events, it seemed the Shadow Supreme was quite a braggart, who happily spoke about his champions. The blessed of the ones who follow your path, does that mean Valkyria? Neo spoke, trying to keep his tone calm and even. I did no such thing. The one I harmed was created by shadows. That is sophistry, Hargraves. Not argument. What do you expect me to say? Someone came knocking at my door with a gun. Of course, I fought back. It matters to us not. What we care about is we lost one who walked on our path. Neo felt it. Void did not care about Valkyria. What it wanted was something else. Not the pond, not the justification. But something else. Void, why are you forcing the child to walk on your path? Space spoke. We did no such thing. The Void spoke offhandedly, yet it was now clear to Neo. Void wanted him. Why? He didn't understand. He could think about it later. I will do my best to awaken my Void affinity, Neo said. The Void elementals remained silent. They seemed pleased, expectant. Neo could not put a finger on the intent he sensed from them. It confused him as to why Void was eager to have him walk its path. Do not forget what you have said now, Hargraves, and do not make us wait for long. Crossing us will cost you much. Without another word, the purple bubbles flowed into the flower. Its petals unfurled as it reached maturity. Neo ignored the storm of elementals covering him and turned to space. Thank you. It was a transaction. There is no need to thank us. The silvery motes of light disappeared. The storm of elementals became the source of nourishment for the flower. It began to bloom beautifully. An ethereal light covered the petals, and the flower floated above Neo's hand. Chapter 405 Dragon Blood, Fusing Bloodline Fragments. Neo could sense a different sense of power emanating from the flower. It wasn't strong per se, but still strong. There was something different, something unique about Violet Everwitch. Its glowing petals were mesmerizing. They seemed to be inviting, hoping he would consume it. Its enchanting grasp held dominion over his mind. He almost absorbed it when suddenly a sharp pain tore through his veins, and he stopped. The battle between his bloodlines had reached the climax. The new bloodlines held a numeric advantage. However, they were damaged. They should have been ejected, instead of being able to usurp Neo's original bloodline. Something astonishing happened at that moment. The bloodline monarch of death swelled. Enraged, it grabbed the invading bloodlines and started to devour them. Bloodline combination, it was a rare event. It only happened when two bloodlines were similar, and the weaker bloodline would be devoured, empowering the stronger bloodline. But Monarch of Death and the invading bloodlines couldn't be more different. They were not similar at all. Neo, confused, tried to stop his bloodline. He wasn't enthused to find out what would happen if his bloodline devoured a bloodline that was completely different from it. Before he could do anything, the invading bloodlines had been eaten completely. Neo blinked, stupefied. The pain suddenly stopped. He felt as if a volcano on the verge of explosion was brewing within him. Collected bloodline. Fragment X1. Collected bloodline. Fragment. Collected bloodline. Frag. Collected bloodline. Collected bloodle. Collected. Collect. The bloodlines weren't named, but Neo could see he had gained 6 bloodline fragments, each belonging to a different bloodline. I took 6 different bloodline vials, and gained 6 fragments. Monarch of Death could do something like this. To say he was surprised would be an understatement. Monarch of Death had overpowered the invading bloodlines and not even allowed them to leave. His bloodline had forced them to give everything to it. It has been detected that bloodline fragments X6 are compatible with Mind Invasion bloodline. Would you like to fuse the bloodline fragments X6 into Mind Invasion bloodline? Please note, if you can gather more bloodline fragments of the same bloodlines, it is possible to gain their original bloodline. Proceed, deny. While staring at the screen, Neo had forgotten the state of his body. If not for Ava appearing at his side just in time and holding him, his head would have crashed into the blood-soaked pond. She helped him come out of the pond. Thank you. How did you do that? She asked instead of replying to his thanks. The raw ability to devour other bloodlines and force them to integrate into oneself is something only dragons have. Are you a dragon? Her golden eyes seemed to stare into his soul. Neo opened his mouth to refuse but stopped halfway through. Was he a dragon? As far as he knew, dragons had different kinds of bloodlines themselves. Maybe Hades' bloodline belonged to some ancient dragon clan, which later evolved into Monarch of Death. That would explain why my bloodline can do something that only dragons should be capable of. Why aren't you answering? Ava asked, breaking his train of thought. I don't know, Neo answered truthfully. I'll ask my dad about it when I can meet him. Ava felt he was dodging her question. How long would that take? She pressed. I don't know. Ava frowned, ticked off. Neo had consumed more than half of Yasugori Pond. It would take over a century for the pond to recover to its previous state. Instead of being thankful and answering a question of hers, Neo was lying about something that was blatantly clear. I really don't know, Neo said, sensing her emotions. I've never met my dad in my life, and I don't know how long it is going to take. She seemed unconvinced, so he added, the partial reason I came to this world is because I came to meet my parents if I become strong enough. Suddenly, Ava's mind turned deathly silent. Is that true? She asked hesitantly. I'm afraid it is, Neo answered with a chuckle. His smile only made his words seem more true, making Ava think he was hiding his pain behind the smile. She started to feel a sense of kinship. The shift in her state of mind surprised Neo. What the hell is happening with your family, Kane? He kept his thoughts to himself, knowing Ava wouldn't answer him. Besides, he had a more important task at hand. He stared at the flower. It seemed to be enticing him to consume it. Neo had been caught in the flower's bewitchment the first time, but he didn't fall for it again, being prepared. Who are you going to use it on? Ava suddenly asked. Someone who was injured because of me. She looked at the flower as if wondering something. Unlike the time when they were climbing the mountain and Ava acted as if she was being forced to help Neo, this time she spoke genuinely. Don't use it. That is the flower of a witch. It will turn anyone who consumes it into a true witch. She pursed her lips and quickly added, true witches are born from those flowers. I don't know how you got your hands on something that precious. But it's a cursed object. Okay, stop. Neo raised his hand to stop her from sputtering. Talk slowly, and explain it in simpler words. It was only then Neo realized they had been talking in the same language. Kane must have taught her our world's language, he thought. Ava, not knowing his thoughts, opened her mouth. I've read books from our clan's library. One of the books there had information about that flower. It explained that the witches were born from it. What's a witch? An immortal? Quote ellipsis question mark quote. Neo frowned. What's so bad about it? You can't die. No matter
how hard you try, you will live. Always. For eternity. Her words thundered in his head. Neo had forgotten what eternity entailed. In fact, he did remember it. But he had come to embrace and appreciate it. What about others?